Thank you.
Good evening. Seeing that the time is upon us and we have a quorum, could I have a roll call, please, and call the meeting to order?
Mr. Hanos?
Here.
Mr. Gomes?
Here.
Mrs. Carlin?
Here.
Mr. Carlin?
Here.
Dr. Flowers?
Present.
Mrs. Gaines?
Here.
And Mrs. Sylvia?
Here.
Thank you. We, please stand for the pledge to the flag. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to also please have a moment of silence, and please keep the following individuals who have passed away in your thoughts and prayers. Gregory Malikas, brother-in-law of Missy Malikas, Pell teacher, and Zenobia Canali, retired Rogers High School teacher. Caroline Greenhall, mother of Corey Johnson, Rogers High School teacher. Anthony Hopkins, father of Christy Sykert, RHS teacher. Pat Murgo, retired custodian and father of John Murgo, and also one of our youngsters, one of our Thompson students, Nichelle Eigel. Moment of silence, please. Thank you. I would ask at this time, I'm sure that there's people that are signed up for public comment, but if you are here to discuss the busing or the Pell school start time, we do have that as an agenda item under discussion, which is just shortly down the agenda. So I'd ask that you would refrain from that at this point in time, and you will be able to speak on that particular item when it does come up. But any other folks that have signed up for public comment?
Yes, we do.
We just ask you to take 3 minutes. There's a lot. The items seem to maybe duplicating themselves, and it's not that we don't want to hear everything. But the items I know are very sensitive issues, being start times and some changes at Thompson Middle School and some other items that may come up. Out of respect for everybody here, and we certainly respect you, we are very happy to see you here tonight, is that if you have something more to offer, we certainly want you to all stand up and be recognized for the issue that you're here. We want to see the folks that are here for the items that have on your minds. We give you 3 minutes, which should be more than an ample time to say what you need to say. I'm not going to clip you right off, but we got to kind of stick to the 3-minute time frame because we have an awful lot of folks that are going to want to talk on a couple of items, and we want to hear from all of you folks. So if you could just step to the microphone, give us your name, where you live, and what school or what students that you represent. Thank you.
My name's James String. I live at 26 Dudley Avenue, and I wanted to talk tonight about the clustering, the new clustering system at Thompson. But before I get into that, I actually just wanted to say that my 2 children go to Pell. They went to Clooney, and they were a little nervous on the first day, and I just had some good news. They absolutely loved it. After the first day, they ran up to me, jumped me, hugged me, and said, "Daddy, we love school." So I just wanted to start out with something really positive. But a lot of parents last year decided to take our kids out of Clooney and send them to Thompson. And that was before Clooney closed. And one of the things we did, we went through the school, we toured the school, we met the teachers, we talked about how the system ran, we talked about the clustering, and we were all comfortable with that. We sent our kids last year. It was great. I mean, my daughter loved it. I know a lot of the parents, their children loved it as well, and we thought the system worked really well. So we were a little taken back when we heard that now the system has changed. So that's really what I wanted to bring up tonight, and just make a few suggestions. And I know we are meeting with the superintendent tomorrow morning, but before we did that, I just wanted to bring it up, make a few points. One of them is, we were hopeful that maybe, in lieu of the system, we can do like an honor system for everyone, for the top performing kids. The classroom placement we think should be based on academic level as a whole, and not only on the test scores and the teachers' views. And with such a wide-ranging academic level in each classroom, I think it's going to be difficult to teach to, the higher level kids. I think that the classroom might actually be geared to the lower level kids. So, that's something that we would like addressed. Continuous outbursts and behavioral disturbances. Again, that's something that's going to inhibit the ability for us, we feel, for our kids to learn adequately. So, hopefully tomorrow, I know, like I said, we're meeting with the superintendent, and the other thing was, it kind of came up as a surprise, and we're just hoping that there maybe could be some more communication. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Dring. Thank you, Joe. Yeah, we'll get it together.
Hi, my name is Melanie OBrien. I have a son at Thompson, and I actually had signed up to speak on a different point, but following him and piggybacking on him, my son is high-function autistic. He has Asperger's. He has made honor roll every term. Because of the way it was clustered previously, he was always put with behavioral children to have a para, because he is not given a para when he is placed in higher functioning classrooms, because the school board and everyone else says there's no funding for paras. So to address him as a parent whose child benefits on the other side, what happens to my kid? My kid will be placed back with behavioral issue children and not get the education he deserves. My son scored last year on his ELA for STAR testing a 12.9, which is freshman college in 6th grade. Why should my son be with disciplinary children who cannot control themselves in class? He's supposed to be with higher functioning kids, but he's not awarded that because he has special ed services. So, although I understand that gentleman's point, I think the committee actually has to also understand people in our position and understand that there's two sides to the story. My original reason for coming up is I have questions on the safety and security plan at Rogers. I have come to understand that they're hiring security officers in the school, and I need to know, okay.
We're going to have a rollout. That's one of our
okay.
agenda items. I didn't want to cut you off.
No, that's fine.
But a lot of your questions we'll be able to ask directly of Principal Vance, because he's actually going to come up and put on a presentation.
No, I came up because you had said about Pell, and I didn't realize
No,
that.
I'm sorry.
Nope, that's
okay.
fine. That's fine.
If that's
Yep.
okay with you, I mean.
No,
I'm sure.
that's fine. I just have, as a parent of an ASPE, I have questions that need to be addressed by the school committee.
Okay,
Thank you.
sure. Thank you.
I'm short. Good evening. My name's Jennifer Jackson. I reside at 38 Dudley Ave. I have a son in 3rd grade and a daughter in 7th grade. Yeah, 7th grade. My concerns is the crowding at Pell. We are desperate for space here. We're up to 960 plus students with the elementary alone. We have 8 classes in each grade, kindergarten through 4th. So you do the math, that's 40 classrooms. And that is it, yeah, 40, and that's scary. We're running out of space. The music room has lost their spacing in order to put a classroom. I think our students need those extras, and we tend to always, as a district, take away the basic life skills from children when the money gets tight and the spacing gets tight. I know you probably don't want to hear this, but I think we need to start talking about putting modules out in the yard to open space. I know it's not pretty, but it's not pretty to have kids piled up on each other either. That creates behavioral issues, that creates stress, and it creates a negative environment. To do an eyesore over social and emotional stresses, I'll take an eyesore. You know, we need to think outside the box and find out that the realism is our population is growing, which according to whoever you paid to do statistics from was wrong, because they don't live in our community and don't understand our community, and unfortunately gave wrong data. And we need to start thinking about making space at Pell so that people aren't crammed in, and especially our staff and our children too. And we're losing what's next, the 2 art rooms, because that's basically all we got left is the 2 art rooms, and if that goes away, then we're gonna have art on a cart. And it's bad enough that the music is on the stage and there's no sound barriers, so it doesn't sound good, which if I was a music teacher would drive me insane. And the other thing I want to address is, I forgot, Thompson. My daughter did bring up that she's in a different classroom, she doesn't really know anybody. And Melanie, I understand you, I feel you, because there's got to be a happy medium somewhere. But with that being said, my daughter's a little upset because now she's dealing with kids that she thought she got away from. And I don't know how to say this without sounding bad. It's just she said that, you know, Mom, now it's like we're back to having problems in the classroom. I'm having trouble focusing. It's only week 2. And I said, well, you know, just do your best. She goes, I'm trying. And it's like some of the kids that she's around, she had problems with in the past because of, I don't want to use bullying, but they were rough to her. And now she has to re-deal those issues and deal with that. And I don't know what to do for her because when it was going on in 5th grade, I never got any answers. And it's like, I don't want to see my daughter go from 5th grade, she hated school and wanted to drop out, to 6th grade, she loved school. And I don't want to go back to that 5th grade environment again for her because she is very smart. And I do see her excelling, and I don't want to hand, but I can't make the meeting tomorrow, so that's why I wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Is there anyone else signed up for public comment?
Scott, McKenna, and Diane.
I also have packets here that I can hand out after speaking. All of you have received an email from me earlier today, so I just want to reiterate to the public the concerns that are going on.
Excuse me, Diane, can
Yes.
you identify yourself, please?
Yes. I am Diane Sheehan, art educator at Pell and art supervisor for Newport Public Schools. I'm here tonight as public awareness to regain the music rooms at Pell back to what the rooms were specifically designed, functioned, and intended to be. I truly believe that one of the key buy-in features of the elementary schools consolidation into one architecturally magnificent structure was the state-of-the-art art and music rooms. This year marks a monumental year for Pell Elementary. The current 4th grade class will be the first graduating class to enter the newly built Pell Elementary since kindergarten. Many changes have occurred, which is, of course, increased student enrollment. 3 years ago, one of the 2 music rooms at Pell became a 1st grade classroom to supplement that need. This year, 40 classes are needed at Pell, and the second and last music room became a 4th grade classroom. Our very own music teachers, Mr. Scott McEnany and Mr. Larry Mock, spent numerous sessions with the architectural firm, tailoring the needs and aesthetics of what the music room should look like, from the permanent staff lines on the whiteboards to instrument storage, areas for movement, orchestral shelving along with fitted choral risers, sound panels, and pricey acoustical tiles. The mission was truly accomplished. Strategically placed side by side to each of the art rooms, the intent has always been not only to unite the arts and physicality, but as comrades within the fine arts department. With class size numbers in most grade levels teetering at full capacity, the art rooms at Pell are next on the chopping block. From its inception, the vision of Pell Elementary was tailor-made specs of these specialized rooms, and our stellar music curriculum is now greatly impacted. Teaching will be compromised. We question if we are kids first, one Newport, national and Rhode Island state art standards driven district. We are falling short. We are asking for your help. The last 3 years, the music teachers split, traveling on a cart from moving desks and equipment in grade-level classrooms. Classroom teachers forfeited their planning times within the walls of their own room. And yes, children not being able to transition their surroundings to music are just a few of the deterrents of not having these specialized music rooms. With 5 minutes between classes, Pell's physical size deems almost impossible for
Diane?
just the mere movement of music teachers from one room to another.
I can see, and we can all see, that you're reading that wonderful letter you put together, but
Okay.
in the sense of timeliness, if you could just
Sum it up.
sum it up a little bit for us.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, in a nutshell, let's not forget all the community outreach and specialized rooming. For example, $30,000 of new instruments to our music program in the Little Kids Rock music curriculum, which was supported by the Bazarski Family Foundation, over $150,000 invested funds. I'm going to turn it over now to Mr. McEnany, and he could finish with what we were talking about.
Thank you.
Yes, I am Mr. Scott McEnany. I'm a music teacher at the Pell School. I live in South Kingstown, Rhode Island, so I know that makes me an off-islander, but I'm one of the bad guys, I guess. But historically, the Pell Strings program averages over 70 third and fourth grade students and over 90 third and fourth graders in chorus, with some choral classes holding 35 students in one session. The choral risers, now on the stage in the back right over here, against the foldable stage partition, has a useless top platform riser for safety reasons of students possibly breaking through the folding partitions. There is also the Technology Endowment Campaign to raise $1 million to invest in the future of the new Pell School. The Pell Tech were generous donors, sponsored rooms with multiple donors sponsoring the music rooms. Since 2013, a blue engraved plaque has been placed upon each classroom door designating the donor sponsored. In both original music rooms, multiple sponsors have graced the doors, such as the Sardella family. If donors knew the rooms they sponsored are not rooms they allocated funds for, well, we find this troubling. To offset desk areas for the 3 music teachers, the upper front corridor office has been outfitted with Home Depot snap shelving and hard black chairs, a far cry from the Martha Stewart atmosphere of the music rooms with the views gracing the upper corners of Pell's and wings. Quite honestly, we've become physically nauseous upon entering the upper music room, seeing the expensive sound panels being used as bulletin boards. Because of the stage's size, movement and dance are not even an option. We are awaiting the installation of a smartboard on the stage. The set-up sound system in the music rooms was impeccable, now replaced with plants. And how do instruments from cellos and violins moved easily, not to mention music stands? Newport Public Schools has always been a showcase for the arts. Every school tour brought in CLUNY students to our new families. Mr. Mark McKenna always brought them through the music and art rooms. It was a selling point. Mission accomplished. Unfortunately, not in the arts' favor. We are very fortunate to have our superintendent, administration, school committee, and community value the arts and the importance of the arts with learners of all ages. We are home to the Newport Jazz Festival, Folk Festival, Music Festival. We have philanthropists such as Peter and Melinda Gerard, who brought to us the PIP grant, providing Pell School with thousands of dollars to enhance disruptive music and disruptive learning in music like never before. The music itself is not disruptive, it's just the learning way it was slotted for 2 performances this year. What happens when there are assemblies, like the Navy Band at Christmas, or any performance that needs the stage? The arts has been a big initiative of the district strategic plan. The introduction of STEAM courses and community outreach now we feel is an outcry. The Pell Music and Art Rooms have always been regarded from the very first day when students entered this building resounding, "The arts are alive and well at Pell" mentality. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. McEnany. And Diane, thank you.
Would you like these packets? Please.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else for public comment?
Patrick and Amanda Ryan.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Carlin.
thank you. I have a question for the superintendent about something that was mentioned by the parents this evening and as expressed in the letter. I'd like to ask the superintendent, when were the parents at Thompson Middle School informed of the decision to effectively end learning, grouping, for lack of a better phrase?
There has been no official notification at this point in time. When we did our strategic plan and we had discussions about heterogeneous grouping, that was one of the major topics. Then over the summer, after summer school, which ended approximately the first week of August, there were discussions on how we were going to address behaviors and also at the same time implement rigorous academic standards and high expectations for all our students. The start of the beginning of this school year, the grades 5 who has always been heterogeneously grouped, they've been assigned to their classroom teachers, and their cluster teachers lead that designation of where they place their students. And I think for the audience to understand, each grade level receives so many students. The students are divided into clusters, and the easiest way for me to say this is, so you have 200 students, so 100 students will go to cluster A, 100 students will go to cluster B. Then from there, the guidance department would work looking at the student data as far as how to group students going forward. A while back, before my arrival, there was I'll call it a grouping system set up in which children were placed according to their ability level. In the old days, they used to call it tracking. So it would be 1, 2, 3, and 4. And students would be placed in that and then travel with the same group of students all day long. After we had a visit from the RIDE, the Department of Ed, we were cited for this because tracking was not allowable. It's not to say that you can't have high ability grouping in accelerated classes, but the way in which you group children has to be equitable, and children have to have accessibility to the curriculum. So, starting off this year in grades 5 through 7, the clusters, just like every other year, each cluster was given X amount of students, and the guidance department worked, instead of grouping them according to all the, I'll call the 4s, the highs, in math and English, all students in every content area except for math at grade 8 were placed in heterogeneously. And the goal and the purpose of that was for the first 5 weeks of school, also taking into account the expectations for behavior and high standards for behavior, that the teachers were to get to know their students, get to know who your students are, what they're all about, how they learn, what are their goals. Because if we look more and more at the research, we're realizing that as early as the middle school level, that's when students are starting to make decisions, and that's when we should start looking at how and what our students are taking in school. So we are introducing as part of our strategic plan this year also the individualized learning plans, in which all our grade 6 students will start to fill Way to Go online, and they will fill out these, I'll call them online systems, and it's for parents as well, to see all the different resources that are available to families as far as even financial aid, pathways, etc. So at the end of the day, families and children will be more focused on what is your passion, how do you want to learn, what is it you want to be or do after you get out of high school, and that takes you all the way into the career pathways when they go to Rogers. This year, we're actually at 7th grade, we're going to start introducing the career and tech programs so that children and families are better aware of what's offered at Rogers, especially for those, for instance, we have sophomores this year on the CCRI campus taking high-level, I believe it's math. But we'll continue that process. So to answer your question, Mr. Carlin, the parents have not been informed as of this time. We were just sharing and rolling it out with the teachers. And then once the students take their STAR testing at the beginning of October, the teachers, the people who are working with the students and know the students are best, are going to sit down and do the grouping as far as what they seem is best.
This is a fairly significant change at Thompson Middle School. In fact, I think it's the most significant change that's been made in the last 6 years. Don't you think that parents deserved an explanation, prior to the start of the school year, and apparently they haven't received a detailed explanation either. Don't you think this is an important enough issue that parents should have been notified well in advance of this change?
Mr. Carlin, the administrative team working with Thompson Middle School, we're just trying to get everything together before the beginning of the school year. We have a lot of changes and charges that we're trying to implement throughout the entire school system to address behaviors as well as academics. And yes, in a perfect world, yes, absolutely. We should have been able to get this information out, but I will say literally the week before school, we were having these discussions and as a team deciding what is best and what is to go forward. We are going to have an information night for parents going forward, and we will continue to do some outreach. I'm meeting with parents tomorrow, and we'll continue. Today is day 5, and I have, for those families that have contacted me, I have also asked them to please reach out if there have been problems or if something has happened, because it is day 5, and if there are behaviors or something happening in the classroom, which I do want to follow up with you, I want to hear about them, and we need to address them immediately.
Was the principal and the vice principal of Thompson Middle School informed about this, consulted, asked for their opinion, and if so, what did they say?
Yes, they were. They were consulted about this. As a matter of fact, it was the principal, the assistant principal, the director of teaching and learning, the assistant superintendent, and we looked at the data, we looked at what needed to be done, and we specifically did not rule out that any kind of high-level grouping or anything could happen. What we focused on is let's do the heterogeneous grouping, let's see where the kids are at, let's have the teachers establish strong standards of behavior and classroom expectations as far as classroom management, and then also let's teach as we always have, and then we'll do the STAR testing, and we had specific timelines.
Well, very, very specifically, what did the principal of Thompson Middle School and the vice principal of Thompson Middle School say? Do they concur with this decision? I mean, obviously, you are their superior, but do they believe that this decision is the right decision for Thompson Middle School?
I do not want to speak for either one of them, nor do I want to misrepresent them. I will say that I do believe that both of them feel it is appropriate, but we do need to reach out to parents and we need to be clear on communication. But again, I think that's Mr. Crowley and Mr. Campion should answer that.
Okay, but you're under the impression that you think both of them think it's appropriate?
I do.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Superintendent Germain.
Clearly, just by reading the whole audience out here, there's heads shaking from one side of the room to the other side of the room. So I trust that the superintendent is going to address this as swiftly as we possibly can and figure it out to ensure that we've got the input from, I don't care which side of the room I look at, I got people shaking their heads all over the place. So clearly, we understand this is a major change, and we're going to have to work this out.
I know that we usually don't talk, subjects that aren't on the agenda, but Mr. Carlin brought this up. So I just want to say 6 years ago, I sat here, though, and said that this was tracking. This is tracking, this is tracking. The kids were together all day long. The same children were together for science, math, reading, PE. They never got to be with any other kids. All the data says you can ability group kids, but you should only ability group them for math and reading, okay? Math and ELA. And so we have to become in compliance with what RIDE has come now down on us and said, you can't do this. You cannot track the kids all day long with the same kids. So this is how we have to, it has to be addressed, and, and I think it's still in the implementation stages. But anyway, we're faced with something we have to do here. Yeah.
Sure.
Left to the podium.
Can you, people that are going to watch want to hear your question, so if you don't mind, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but there are people that'll, go ahead, you got this. You can do this. You're fine. You're not speaking in public, you're speaking amongst your friends. Look at it that way.
My daughter's in 7th grade at Thompson, and the kids go...
I'm sorry, excuse me, could you identify yourself? And
I'm Carly Cesarini, and my daughter's in 7th grade. So the kids actually go to their specials with different kids. They're not just in the same classroom with the same kids. They're in different specials with different kids. Like, that's how the kids are grouped together. So I think the concern is that we didn't know that this was happening. And the other concern for me as a parent is not only did I not know, my daughter came home and said, this is what's happening. And I'm like, wait, what? So then now you have the kids in class, and you're going to do STAR testing, and then you're going to change my kids. Like, you're going to change all these kids.
No, let me be clear for the clusters. So if you look at flexible grouping and you look at clusters, what they'll do is they'll assess the students, and then as the teachers, that's the discussion they need to have. And
So that's subjective, though.
no, you will receive, and it was reported to me that in the past, you've never received, and you can tell me if it's clear or not, correct or not, that you've never received the STAR testing. When they take the STAR testing, it's an assessment they take in the school, and they take it about every 6 to 8 weeks.
But what is that test? That's a snapshot. That's a snapshot of a child, like, on that day. So, and the concern is that you're changing everything and not letting parents know. So I didn't even have time to decide if I was going to change her when my daughter went to school. So she went to school based on that. This is how the kids were. I'm a psychotherapist, so I'm not opposed to having different kids in different classrooms. Like your son, if that's where his IQ is, then he should be in classroom with my daughter. It's an educational. It's what's based on the children's education. So now my daughter has a behavior child in her classroom that's been kicked out every day, at least 5 times. So that's an issue for me.
I agree.
And this is a difficult time. This is difficult to speak here because it's not like this isn't what I know. This is what this is supposed to be. But you're all talking, and we have a different experience as parents. So, and we met with the principal. And we talked to him about different things too. So I just don't think it's fair what the school system is doing. And again, you can kind of cluster the kids and put them in classrooms, but like Middletown High School, they have something called, I can't remember. But what it is those kids are in honors classes,
Yes.
and they get a certain block for just a class that's like a block of when they have enrichment. But you're not offering any of that to us. Currently.
Not at this time, that's
for
correct.
5 weeks of school.
So, Carly, and to the rest of the folks that are here, because I see Ms. O'Brien getting back up to chime in again, which is great, but this seems like a very specialized issue that I don't know why we can't have a night like maybe this week or as soon as possible to figure this out, because I can tell this could go on for hours. We can go back and forth. It's very important. Parents are trying to make decisions, whether they're going to stay, go, what they're going to do. They're concerned about their children. It's super important. We get it. It was a last-minute change that was thrust upon them, and the parents didn't get the opportunity to weigh in. Maybe we could have done a better job with that. But I think we're here right now. I would state that if that's what the general consensus would be, that we have a meeting set aside specifically for this to address it with the staff from Thompson Middle School and get the parents involved as quickly as we can, because as the time ticks on, we know that if we wait 5-6 weeks to test, and we've lost 5-6 weeks potentially of shuffling the kids around, and that might not be the best case scenario. Superintendent Germain or the rest of my colleagues, if you agree with something like that, we can direct the superintendent to have that meeting and make that public and make it happen as soon as possible. Does anybody else on the dais up here feel that that's an appropriate way to handle this?
I believe the superintendent has said
That's absolutely fine. I think it's great if we could have an informational session for all not only about the academics, but the behavioral standards.
Well, that's all part of it. That's
absolutely.
Why is it we know, like we need to know what is happening. Like, what's the game? Is there going to be any change or not? Like, that's what it comes down to, because you're saying an informational meeting. This is an informational meeting. Like, we know what's happening. So what would we go to the meeting? Then you're like another week, and then I'm in October, then I'm in November, like trying to support the Newport Public School, but then your child is left in that same environment with no change. And then my daughter's in 9th grade in Rogers. all honors classes. How is my 7th grader going to get to Rogers and be in all honors classes if you only offer like math honors? So anyway, I know this isn't the appropriate time, but it's like, that's a great idea. But then we're talking 5 or 6 weeks. That's a long time for parents who maybe want to make other choices. So,
Superintendent Jermaine, I mean, would you have the information, the game plan ready to lay out to the parents in that short amount of time so they actually know
Absolutely.
what the plan, there's got to be a plan because we've started school and we're in the process of
Absolutely.
it. So
Okay.
I think that's basically what they want to
Yeah,
see. Is they want to
this
see
is
the
like a fire
roadmap
drill.
of what's going to happen.
Right, and we'll also
Fire
have,
drill.
we'll have the different pathways so you can see, it's almost like a decision tree. Absolutely.
Dr. Flowers?
Yeah, I think having an informational workshop, if you will, would be good, would inform all of us. And I would hope that the teachers who, and I'm just thinking a couple of cases when I've been approached and said that, I've been told that, you know, these categorizing, I hate to use that word tracking, because sometimes we just mean we're following to see how well the kids are doing. But for categorizing the students in various sections, some have felt that the kids were almost left in that particular group without a chance to go up, down, sideways. And so perhaps the teachers who are concerned about that part of the grouping problem should be able to give a lot of input too. So I think we should have, as soon as you can practically put together a workshop, fine, and then that way we can get down to the other business that we have here.
I think my main concern, and I can only speak for myself and for my child, is that academically he needs to be in high honors classes. We do not have enough paraprofessionals, so before your meeting, you need to start doing interviews and hiring paraprofessional one-on-ones for the children who cannot be in disciplinary classes with children who get up, slam doors, yell, scream, swear, threaten the teacher, things like that. My son cannot learn in that kind of environment, and because he has an IEP, he is placed in that kind of environment, and that's detrimental to him. That is not following the law of 1970, which is supposed to close the educational gap through an IEP. You are not following his federally mandated IEP because last week he had teachers in a classroom setting which was environmentally correct for him. Today he goes to school, and because you don't have enough paras, and he needs a para for music and art and his specials, they have now changed him to a new section with disruptive children. He cannot learn in that kind of environment. So you need to learn to hire more paraprofessionals before you even think about hiring a safety officer. Because it's at the education level of Pell and Thompson where these kids learn to be respectful. They learn to be classroom ready. If we don't have one-on-ones to help them, especially the ones with IEPs, that's why they're running amok in Rogers. They have no respect because they don't want to be here. They're disenfranchised and they no longer feel welcomed in the school. My son is not welcomed at Thompson. I had a person in his IEP meeting pull the fire alarm to stop my IEP meeting because they could not tell me why he doesn't have a para one-on-one. How do you think that makes me feel as a taxpayer and as a parent whose child, and I don't want to hear about STAR testing. Like I said, he's 9th grade math, 12.9 English. He does not even take in STAR testing anymore because there's no use to test him. He's beyond what your teachers are teaching him. So people need to get educated and you need to hire more paras. If not, you need to transfer my child to another school. Thank you.
I do counsel kids in public schools, is if you looked at somewhere like Fall River Middle School, House Middle School, they have something called the GAME program, where kids who are high honors get to go into that one classroom, or something like Middletown or Portsmouth where you have honors classes. So it's basically semantics by saying tracking. So that's the problem, that you have not, it's a fire drill now. So now we don't have what we need for our kids. Whereas if you backed up and you did it in May or June, these conversations could have been had and our kids wouldn't be in the position they're in.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just add on to the whole conversation? This brings back to a point that I've been saying that, you know, it's a 50-50. You want parent involvement. Parents are dying to get involved. Parents are wanting to be involved in their children's education, their children's life. And for some reason, we have this stigma that parents don't care. We do care. And in us caring and you not taking the time to ask, what do we think is best for our children, enable them to learn in an environment that they want to go to, things like this happen, things like change of time. You know, it's little things. In the bigger picture, yes, it may be little, but when it affects your child personally, it's more than a little problem for you. And I think that we need to start considering opening forums for parents before making judgments on how to change things that we are used to, you know, and it might just be our comfort level too, and we need to be educated ourselves. Or maybe it's like, this sounds good, but hold on, it's not going to be realistic for the children in our community, and it won't work for our children, but it may have worked for somebody else's. So I think that this is a form of, and I'm sure, well, I hope it wasn't intentionally, that it shows disrespect to the parents' opinions, disrespect to the needs of the children, and how the parents feel the children, what they need for their education. I'm sure and hope it wasn't intentional, but it does come off that way when you make decisions like this and don't take the time to ask us as parents and community what we think we need for our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you. And please know there was no disrespect at any time for the families. And going forward, education and every day and decisions we make, it's a learning lesson. But please know, I hear you loudly and clearly. Talk to parents, inform us, and keep us in the loop. And we will set up a system. So thank you, and thank you, Ms. Jackson.
Thank you all, actually, for your input, and thanks for filling up this room. This was, the desired effect was to fill up the room, but for different reasons, but that's okay. I'm glad that people took the time to come out and express your opinions. We need to hear it. We need to hear the feedback, and then we pump it back in and try to give you the product that you deserve. That's what we're after here. The
Mr. Chairman?
Education for all students. Yes, Mr. Carlin.
I had forgotten to do this, I apologize, but former chairman of the school committee, Pat Kelly, who, under his leadership, the school committee initiated the change to homogeneous groupings. He wanted to express, he's traveling this evening, but wanted to express, if he could be here, that, and I'll enter it in the record through Ms. Nash, that he objects strongly to the change, and in fact, he specifically says that the redesign was intended to allow both the focus of support and resources for lower performing groups and to increase challenges and opportunities for students who had already mastered the fundamentals. Again, he's strongly opposed to this change. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Moving on with the rest of the agenda items, we will be reaching out to the parents, Ms. Jermaine, as soon as you talk to your staff and get the message to these folks when we're going to sit down. And I know there's already a meeting scheduled with a group of folks. What time is that going to be and where?
It's 7:45 in room 926 at the Newport Area Career and Tech Center. 7:45 tomorrow morning.
Thank you. The next agenda item would be a presentation for a new discipline model presentation, and this is from Lynn Grantham. Lynn, could you...
Thank you. You might invite parents to stay for this.
What?
I would invite them to stay.
Yeah.
Hello, Ellen Grantham. I'm the Director of Student Services here at Newport Public Schools. And this year we have created and instituted an in-school restriction program. All of you have, in the committee, have received the draft mission statement and all the different pieces. So formally, this program has been created to provide students with the opportunity to learn skills in a setting where they can thrive socially, behaviorally, and emotionally. With collaboration between the school committee and parents and caregivers, we strive to meet each student's individual needs using a multidisciplinary restorative approach. So this whole program is based on restorative practices and a behavior method called conscious discipline, and the purpose is to provide students with the opportunity to learn executive functioning skills that meet their individualized needs. And if they're not meeting behavioral expectations as outlined by the student handbook, then we will provide direct instruction in functional skills that will enable students to learn necessary skills to function in the classroom. In-school restriction programs at Rogers and Thompson have specific criteria and expectation. So there is a flow chart that was created that is with the deans, and basically, and then we also created a program of when in-school restriction will be used and how it would be used. And it would be based on major and minor infractions, and the plan helps sustain the obligations that are provided by the laws that were passed in June of 2016, as well as help with a corrective action plan and the behavior pieces that we talked about in the strategic plan. I don't know much more detail, and I could talk for hours on this, and I drive everybody crazy, but I mean, I don't know how much more detail you want me to go into.
It might be worth it for why this is actually being presented was the fact that the committee itself was hearing out the issues from the teachers and the staff at Thompson last year and some other issues that were going on at Rogers High School, and then certainly other issues. So this is a holistic approach to the way we're going to change disciplinary programs within the school, and the parents need to know about this just as importantly as the students do, because when the student comes home to say, hey, I got gigged for whatever, that's right, those are the new set of rules, and that was the task that we gave to the superintendent as a group, is things need to change. You've got to give respect to get respect. So the plan was developed by Lynn, I would imagine, or this is a piece of a plan that's already been out there, that it will be a work in progress, but it's a radical change from what we've seen over the past years, which was it was very loose, if you ask me, and it was getting looser by the minute. Kids would love to get thrown out of school and get a chance to leave. Now you're going to have to earn your way back into the classroom. There's going to be some merit to this. You can't just get tossed out of class and kick your heels and run down the hall and go sit in the dean's office. You're going to be expected to do something to earn your way out of this in-house suspension. We've invested some funds to get a couple of extra staff to staff these in-house suspensions. So they're not just going to go into a room and be expected to be there by themselves. There'll be actually a staff member in there with them monitoring these students, correct?
Yeah,
I mean,
a staff member that's highly skilled in restorative practice and working with students with behavioral and functional challenges. And the approach will be like describing what happened, what were you thinking at the time, what have you thought about since, and who has been affected by what you have done and in what way, and what do you think you need to do to make things right. So this kind of approach will be used in every aspect. So the student first will be in an environment where they can help regulate and restore their bodies, so they're back in a place. Then they have to process the behavior, and then from there they have to do work, and they have to earn enough points to get out based on doing work performance. And then the last part, which is something that is going to be new for Newport, is a restorative plan, which means they have to come up with strategies or restorative practice to integrate them back into the classroom. So the function would be immediate, so that they're not lingering in the dean's office, and the process moves quickly and moves smoothly, hopefully. I mean, we're in day 5, and I know it's already being utilized in Thompson, and I think it's about to be utilized in Rogers. And what we're noticing is that probably this will be a very effective method for probably 95 to 90%, 97% of the school population. And then for that 3%, we'll be able to at least have data to track where the pitfalls are and come up with a more intensive intervention plan for them.
So as a draft, Superintendent Jermaine, is this something, obviously we're gonna hone it down, but is there anywhere for parents to view the draft of this particular piece that we've developed so that they too can look at it? Because there are purpose, mission, state, expectations are from staff and caregivers being the parents. So this is a document that the parents too should be able to view.
Right. This was, yes, the answer is we wanted to present it to you this evening to answer any of your questions, see if you have any concerns, and then we will be presenting and posting this. I do want to thank also, we had teachers and we worked specifically with union leadership to ensure that we took in all concerns from the classroom environment setting.
Mr. Hanos?
I'm sorry.
I had
Ms.
one,
Boland.
after reading it all really carefully, it looks like a lot of time was put into this, but one thing I didn't notice was in the ISR room, are you going to outlaw personal devices? Like kids having them, their phones?
The handbook does not allow electronics, so the same rules will apply in the ISR room. Yes.
So you'll collect them?
But, I mean, as you know, it's an ongoing problem throughout the entire state, and some people would argue we're fighting the tide, but...
Right, but I just think in that particular room, we all know that they have them on them at school, let's be honest. But I would just think that in that room, that would be something that we wouldn't want them to have on them.
Part of the criteria to return is complying with the rules, and electronic device is one of those rules, especially if they end up in ISR due to an electronic device. I agree, it is a problem.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would just put that in there, I would add it, that's all.
Okay. Specifically.
Okay, I think in the chart they actually have a specific flow chart specifically for electronic devices and violations of technology in the Newport discipline guides, because these are the areas that were identified as being identified by the teachers as being the biggest area of concern, and one of them was electronic device. It's the 4th one down. And then there is a specific plan in place.
It's in the chart.
Right, it's in the chart, but that says if you're asked to give it up and you refuse. So what I'm saying is that we all know that probably 95% of the kids have one on them. So if that's part of our law that says you can't have, like one of the rules at school, it says you can't have them, right?
They're not supposed to be out, correct?
It didn't say out, it says you can't have them at school, doesn't it still, or have we changed that?
Yes, says refusal to
No,
surrender.
so in other words, it always was you're not allowed to have them at school on your person. So, I mean, we just need to look at that rule, to make sure that we're not encouraging kids to abuse it by ignoring the fact that they are on their person all day long. And, so I think it's just, they are a privilege, and I don't think we should be allowing them. It was a problem at Thompson in the IS, over at the Boys and Girls Club, them having them on them at that point. So just throwing that out there.
Do you have a question?
So instead of sending them home, we're keeping them in-house? Is that what we're doing?
We are providing them with an alternative educational environment. They will not be sent home unless the infraction violates what the state law has outlined, yes.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Going home is a privilege.
Well, let me tell you, the worst of worst parent, as some people like to perceive, is eventually going to get sick of that child sitting at home. I don't know if this is going to really teach kids consequences. Because it's like...
Oh, I think the ISR room is going to be a lot more stringent or rigorous than being at home. And I think one of the biggest complaints I heard from parents is I'm being called and having to pick up my child every 5 seconds. And I know I'm exaggerating, but that's what his parent said to me. And this is a way to provide an educational environment for the student and not have them home. I can't speak to that. I can only speak to what the law says, and the law is very clear on what we can send kids home for.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Ms. Grantham.
On the action items, we had 2 withdrawn, 4.1 and 4.2. There wasn't enough information prepared for us this evening, so we're asked to put that off to the next meeting. 4.3 was potential approval of Rogers High School Safety and Security Plan. I believe Principal Vance is here to present something to us or speak on this issue. Mr. Vance?
I am Jared Vance. I'm the principal at Rogers High School. I was asked to come and speak to the concept of formal hall monitors or security technicians. When I first was introduced to Rogers High School, one of the things that I first noticed was the overwhelming numbers of doors, exterior doors, to the first floor. Right? So there's around 80 some odd doors that anyone from the outside could have access to. And so that is, for me, first and foremost, we need to create a secure and safe learning environment. And so one of the approaches to doing this was to employ hall monitors or security technicians. And their primary role was to secure the perimeter and hallways, and then to be able to escort guests in from the main entrance to whatever meeting that they were going to attend. We're really trying to tighten a lot of those security things up at the high school. All staff are going to be wearing badges. We're trying to identify every adult that's in the building, and by limiting access, by making sure that those doors are shut and closed and kids are where they need to be, we're really tightening those things up. And so we were looking at two different models. One was a model where we were using 3 part-time personnel that would overlap throughout the day, but that didn't give us great coverage all day. It would provide 1 person in the morning, 1 person in the afternoon, and potentially 2 around the midpoint of the day. By outsourcing and using a security consulting company, we could have 2 people doing that work for the entirety of the school day. These people would be trained and know how to perform the job that we've outlined with very little interaction with kids, because really theirs is not to discipline and address behavior unless kids are located in the wrong areas, but they're really about observe and report for when they see student negative behavior, unless it's something emergent, and then secure the perimeter of the building. No, they don't carry weapons or anything.
No.
No.
Mr. Chair?
Mrs. Gaines.
That is exactly it. They're more monitors.
Mr. Vance,
Yes.
would this have any, would these, the security, would it have any effect for after-school hours,
So,
like after-school activities?
So what we're looking initially to do is at least cover that supper time period where kids are after school and having supper before athletics or for after-school help, because we don't have a lot of staff in the building necessarily at that time, so they would be, we were there doing some monitoring then. But it's an outside organization, so if we were looking for other purposes, whether it was a play, an assembly, a night event, a sporting event, we could consult with that company independently.
Question.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Ida Neary. I'm actually a parent of a Pell Elementary School, but so forgive me. We're outsourcing, so the company that's being outsourced for the security, are they trained, are they educationally trained, or are they police officers? It's a little concerning for me because I have an 8.5-year-old, and I'm thinking, who are you bringing into the high school? Because eventually that's where I will be. So that I'm a little just concerned. It literally scares me when you said what you said. I'm like, who is being brought into the school as a consultant? Are they teachers or are they cops? Let's just call them what they are. I'm super nervous about it. And that's not even my kids. So I don't know about high school parents. They're like, what?
So they're neither police or educators. It's a private security company. They're from Newport. These people are trained to interact with individuals. We're going to ensure they're all BCI checked and safe to be in schools. So they're not designed to interact as much with students unless it's an emergency situation, and it's really about the perimeter and building security.
Who determines the emergency situation?
Acts of violence, things like that, those kind of crisis situations.
So just so you guys are aware, Mr. Vance was asked to present this to us because were you listening to my conversation I had with Ms. Germain, because that was my exact same questions. I'm kidding you, I asked the same questions. My thought was bring in some retired folks, old coaches, old teachers, whatever, pay them some per diem, have them walk around, they know the routine, they can check the doors. This is a work in progress. Mr. Vance was asked to develop this program on his own as the brand new principal, so he's given us some options here. This is nothing that's set in stone yet, but we certainly all know that when you go to Rogers High School, the school is easy to get in and out of. There's a lot of kids coming and going. It's hard to monitor the hallways when you only have so much staff that are in the classrooms teaching, and these kids are slipping outdoors. So we're trying to come up with a better idea on the issue. And basically that's why Mr. Vance is here today, to give us what he's come up with so far. And then before we go ahead and take any action on it, would need approval from the board itself.
Okay, Mr. Chair, could Mr. Vance share in other districts? I believe he came from other districts that implemented some
Right.
of these.
Yeah, we in South Kingstown, where I was prior to being in Bristol Warren, we had supervisory aides. It was the same kind of work that they integrated throughout the building, made sure that kids were where they needed to be and the building was safe and secure, and they escorted guests from the main entrance to meetings in the building. And so it was just a way to ensure that we knew exactly who was in and out of our building. In Bristol Warren, they had security technicians because there was a part of their role that was doing some tech work, but it was the same role. They were checking the perimeters, observe and report, guiding kids to class. So it was the same model, and it really tightens up the security in your building and having people come in and out without being checked in with an adult or a qualified individual. So.
I understand that these officers or monitors are going to be there mostly for the perimeter security, but if they do have direct contact with our children, are they trained to handle and understand children who are on the autism spectrum, children who have Down syndrome or any other kind of disability that may warrant a person who doesn't understand that disability to think the child is having an unsafe moment when they're actually trying to self-regulate or something like that. For example, my son has Asperger's. He doesn't make direct eye contact when he's talking to you. So a lot of people will think he's being rude, he's being he's not following protocol, he's not being social, or he'll look away. A monitor may look at that as an infraction because they're not trained and educated to understand that's just how he copes. Whereas a trained personnel would understand that's how he's self-regulating. And I think as a parent whose child will be going to Rogers, if I can't get him into anywhere else, we need whoever the people are to be trained in understanding that and deal with that population altogether. So that's my suggestion.
I understand your concern. At the same time, these individuals are not going to be interacting with kids unless it's one of those emergency situations, and they're designed to observe and report. They'll have radios, and so that if there's something that's happening in the hallway, they will radio to administration to come and intervene. But it's really the observe and report and make sure the perimeter is secure.
I just wonder about the model of, we all talk about mentors and, and the importance of people mentoring our kids. So if it were 3 people that were able to interact with the kids, would we get a better result? To say, hey, Johnny, you're supposed to, because he's, repeat offender, you're supposed to be in your 4th period class. You know what I mean? Like, I just wonder, like, the non-interaction, if that's hurting us more than someone that really knows the kids and is able to, zero in on, like you just said, your son who might have, some special needs and would know these kids. I kind of worry about them not interacting, a little bit.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Carlin.
Mr. Vance, I don't think this is a good idea. Unless it's radically redesigned, I'm not going to support this. I mean, you heard the testimony, the concerns of parents at Thompson Middle School. If we're lucky enough, if we're fortunate enough that they stay in the Newport Public Schools and middle school, what's going to happen when we send a signal, which we will be doing, that Rogers High School is a dangerous place? That, I don't care what you say with regard to, not you personally, what is said about controlling doors. We have 80 open doors, or we have 80 doors, or we might use this security firm for events at night, etc. The message that's going to be printed on the front page of the Daily News or the front page of the Newport this week is Rogers High School is a dangerous place. We need security guards. I mean, that's like middle income families, if they can afford it, will take out second mortgages to send their children elsewhere if they think Rogers High School is a dangerous place. If it's such a dangerous place, why didn't we hear about the danger that exists at Rogers High School since I've been on the school committee? I am not aware that it's a dangerous place. I'm not aware that kids are escaping. I would think that that's something that the superintendent should share with the members of the committee. But this is going to send a terrible signal. This is like getting a scrape on your knee and cutting off your leg. I mean, this is an extreme measure, and it's not good for the high school.
May I?
Dr. Flowers?
Yeah, I've been looking at this whole business of security, and the number of means of egress at Rogers, of course, is tremendous. It's much more than, well, we have quite a few around here, too.
78 doors.
And a lot of it is, I don't think it's that Rogers High School is a dangerous place, because we've seen too much in the news in the past several years. We're trying to keep the kids safe, and the teachers, and the rest of the personnel safe. So if you have people monitoring, now what format we use, that's something that comes down the road for discussion. But monitoring all of these means of coming in and going out, it's not that easy when you might have one person sitting in a little cubicle near a door, or someone who knows how to get into the office area. Again, I'm speaking from experience where I was fortunate that nothing ever happened in my experience teaching. But I'll tell you, when you watch what goes on in other parts of the country, you know, there were more than a couple of times that I was a little edgy myself when there was no way to communicate with anyone. I think having someone who just knows what to look for and can be proactive rather than having to be reactive. That's the important point. We're trying to keep everyone who is in the school safe, and also prevent what might come up from that disciplinary measure that is being proposed. Any who might decide to take a walk. And if you can just prevent it, you're there, and they just might say, oh, that's not such a bad idea. I would hope, I would insist that anyone who has to interact with any students of any, who have any particular issues, would be trained, would be knowing what to look for, and also always be interacting with administration and with the teachers. But I think I cannot understand, I cannot see rather, that all of a sudden our schools are unsafe. We want to keep them safe, we want to keep the kids safe, and the teachers, and the rest of everyone else who is in there too. Thank you.
Hi, I can speak loudly. I'm Leslie, I have 2 children here at Cal, and I'm just trying to understand this conversation. What prompted this exploration for extra security, and to what extent there seems to be a wide range of who thinks it's necessary? There seem to be kind of 2 different conversations going on, because this is not being implemented, this is being discussed. So can you just kind of inform us as to where the actual threat level is perceived, and again, where this is as a priority? Because I'm hearing some people perceiving it as militia at the doorways.
No.
Some people want Uncle Joe coach who knows everybody. So this is not, we're not having the same conversation. So if you guys could just clarify this for us, that would help me, because I'm sitting here saying, what? Thompson needs armed police?
No,
And I know that
that's not it, and I'll do my best. Jared Vance, being the new principal at the school, came in with a lot of things that we wanted him to tackle. One of the first things we wanted him to tackle was the discipline, and then we had a security plan drafted up for our school, which was pretty extensive. And one of the major issues that they brought to us was that the doors, because the kids run around and then chalk them open, let them in. I mean, we're also working on over the next several weeks to months of putting in, fobs for keys so the kids can allow themselves in, so we can secure these doors a little better, some security cameras. But it was just to kind of get a grip, first of all, of maybe to help with the checking of the doors, which would help the discipline and the roaming around. It's not the threat level of that. The other level of threat is the threat that we see, sadly, all across the nation is, so we have to address the security of the building for that day, which I hope we never have within our school system. That was one of the ideas that this is one of the ideas that Mr. Vance has brought to our attention for discussion right now. How we actually follow through with it, we do need to do it, and we hired a third party. We have the report. So the report, Mr. Vance has had a copy of that, looking at it on how we're actually going to implement it. This is just one way to start to gather those doors. I mean, there's other areas within what we're trying to discuss, but this was an action item. It's actually a request. Whether we voted up or down tonight I know where I'm going. I think it needs more work, to be quite candid. That's my personal opinion. It's the first time I've looked at it, and we're just going to go back and forth a little bit, I think, till we get the model that we like, that is approved, and will work, actually. But tonight, the questions are for Mr. Vance from the group here, because it was a request for an action item, and the action would be to actually hire. I'm not ready to do that just yet. I'd like to see a little more. Ms. Boland, yes, just a minute. I just wanted to finish up with that before, but go ahead.
Oh, it says hall and perimeter. So this was also to make sure that kids were in classes when they were supposed to be, correct? That's the way I understood it. No?
Plan B?
It says, Plan A says hall and perimeter.
Preventive monitors.
So,
And Plan B also says hall and perimeter.
so if they're working down a hallway and they see kids go out or chalk a door, those are the types of things that they'd be observing and reporting. So they're not just going to walk the exterior of the building, they're going to walk hallways to check the exterior doors.
The only problem with you out there, it's not a problem, you have a question, but there's actually people that are watching that won't be able to hear your question. And I'm not trying to embarrass you, but if you wouldn't mind just stepping up and just ask the question. You're in a room full of friends, so don't worry about it. It's okay. Ray, Mr. Gomes. Mr. Gomes, you had a question?
So, yeah, again, to piggyback on Dave's comments, this is all part of a comprehensive security plan that we did get for the schools. One of the alarming concerns, and I can say that from somebody that's in the schools to do work as a parent with my kids and as somebody that's in the schools for official business, many times I'm in the school and I've been approached. I'll be going between the office, the auditorium, or a classroom, and there's a person in the hallway that'll say, "Where's the office?" or "Where's the dean's office?" that they've just wandered in one of these doors. So we have no control of the school in that regard. So long term, to your point, we are in the process of soliciting the bids and putting the process out for fob so that we can secure the doors at the school with an alarm type system or a fob system. But as a stopgap, we had asked Mr. Vance to come up with a scenario or a way, and that's what he's done with this plan. It was to address, again, numerous times I'm in the school and there's just person from the public wandering the hall. It's not as secure as Thompson where you buzzed in or Pell where you buzzed in. It's a much different, larger, older campus. So there are security concerns, but this wasn't meant to be long-term. It's not meant to be the next 5 years. It's not to say that the school's unsafe. It's a way to secure the perimeter of the school. There's many aspects of the plan which we have implemented, putting parking passes in cars so you know who a particular car in the parking lot belongs to and what car goes in what space, and other things that we are implementing slowly over the course of the time from that plan. So again, it's not that there's any concern other than the school is wide open at times, and anybody from a malicious point or somebody who's just coming in to go to a meeting can get in without and not be monitored and not know who's in the building at any given time.
I understand the whole thing about security, because there are kids like bullying and all that go on, and you never know what could happen. I have a daughter in 10th grade, and that worries me sometimes with all the kids bullying, and maybe they do need, maybe not security, but other teachers that aren't not saying doing anything, but have extra time to walk the hallways. You have the dean that's just sitting at the desk behind. I've had troubles where the principal last year only did half days. So when I had a question, with the dean, and the dean didn't give me what I wanted to talk to the principal, and I would call, and she would call me back and say, oh, I'm sorry, I only work a half a day, which I don't understand why the principal works a half a day. But my thing is, why can't we put buzzers on the door, and when the door opens from the inside, because if they're locked from the outside where no one can get in and everybody uses one main entrance, it would stop some of the security issues that you need.
And that's what we're working on. That's exactly, we're just trying to, coming in from a new set of eyes, looking at and walking through the property. Mr. Vance actually expressed some of the same concerns that you had, and he does want to look at redesigning that front door and kind of getting everybody to come to one particular entrance. So everybody's used to, you know how if you pull up to that school, you can almost walk in whatever door you want
Even like
to.
if a teacher comes out, you can walk right in, and they're not even saying,
so
oh, what are you doing?
we're trying to do just that, and it's all new, so, and it's a work in progress, so.
And like when the kids, like you say, crop the door open, there should be a buzzer that goes off as soon as that door opens to the dean's office, or where somebody's always there. Because sometimes you call the dean's office and she's the secretary, I stepped out because I had to go somewhere or something, and you can never get anybody at that school sometimes. So, thank you.
To piggyback on her, maybe we should look in investing, because Rogers was built 1950 something, I believe, and to invest on better technology for the school to allow it to be more secure. Because I understand now it's not that the kids are acting up and the school's violent. No, it's not that. It's not issues within the school of fighting and violence. It's more of trying to keep the kids safe and secure in an environment that can protect them from somebody coming in and harming our children. And I know the word of monitor and officer scares a lot of people, so maybe we should look into how much it would cost for each student to have their own ID so they can buzz through in and out of class. And also that way you can track that Jen just ran out the back door and she should be in class, social studies class or something, and maybe look in to see if that would be more financially capable and better long-term solution than a short-term expensive solution.
Right, and
I
that's.
appreciate you thinking outside the box. Thank you.
Yeah, are there any further questions from my colleagues? Anybody else have any questions for the principal? At this point in time, I think it needs a little bit more work, Mr. Vance. That's my own personal opinion, but I know we gotta fine tune these things, but I guess there would be, does anyone have a motion to approve the plan that's before you, or do you think we need to send it back for a little bit more work?
Mr. Chairman, I move to table the item.
Second.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I just think it needs a little bit more work, Mr. Vance, that's it. But thank you. I mean, we're working on it.
Thank you, Mr. Vance, for your efforts and for being here tonight. Thank you.
The next action item would be potential approval of community outreach mentor program. Superintendent Jermaine, or is that you?
Hello, yes. Nico Merritt is here to share an idea she has as far as community
Ms. Merritt, if
outreach.
you step up to the mic. Is it?
And
is this the
Jessica, I guess,
PowerPoint?
is involved as well, Jessica Coulter.
Is this part of your PowerPoint presentation?
Are we going to see? Are we going
I'm
out
going
there
to
to
back
look?
up a little bit so I can see.
We have to go out there to see it, I think, anyhow.
Need some lights off.
Yeah, it was already ready. I don't know what happened to it. Sorry about the technical difficulties. It was that. What happened? It was on. Yes, it was. I don't know what happened.
Well, I was going to go, I have 7 minutes, so I can't mess it up. Oh, there it is. All right, can we get a full screen? I don't know. So my name is Nico Merritt, and I am a community member. I have a child in Pell Elementary, and I live on Ledyard Street in Newport. So it's not showing the whole thing, but Sankofa Community Connection is working to try to support our youth and be a positive presence in the children's lives. We hear a lot of negativity going on. We hear our kids are troubled, so we're there to lend a positive support system. So, next slide, please. All right, so what we wanted to do is impact the students in a positive way. All students in the Newport Public School District. Participants include various organizations, including members of Sankofa Community Connection. So we have people here, the Strong Male Unity Group, and business owners. Next slide, please. The what is, it's called the Handshake Initiative in Providence, Greet the Children in Boston, and a few other names and other, and a few other things nationally. And it's a call to action for the community members to come out and support the kids and cheer them on before school. There are people on either side high-fiving, cheering, clapping, saying positive, encouraging words as they enter the building. I've seen different variations of this. So I have a quick video to show. Okay, so this is an example of it happening in Providence. And it's queuing up. Yes, at the Kufi. Yes. So, like various community leaders are there, and while it's queuing up, the person who wrote the article stated that some children didn't smile until they saw this. So, here it is. So that's what it looks like. The initiative in Providence was started by Detective Anthony Robertson, and he's a prominent community member. Next slide, please. The when and where of this is, we'd like to try to do this sometimes before the end of September, and what would set us different than the other ones that go on, they do it during the first day of school. I want to do this more than once. I want the kids to know that we support them all year, that we're still there and we're visible in the community, and it will be nice to keep that momentum going. So you're expected at the beginning of the year, and we just pop up at another time and say, hey kids, we're still here and we want you to do well. The where is, like I said, all three Newport Public Schools. We would have people stationed at each school and then have people that are able to go to all three. And next slide, please. And the why. So as you can see in the video, it lifted people's spirits. They had a DJ, a guidance counselor, a real estate agent, barber, Boys and Girls Club, firefighter, police officer. So it's awesome to get a good sampling of leadership in the community and have some familiar faces out there to support you. And according to the Newport HES needs assessment, the community actually spoke, and they said that they wanted to have positive encouragement and role models and pathways for low-income youth. They seem to be the demographic that is affected negatively, and to impact students in a positive way, we need to fill them up to counteract that negativity and hopefully uplift them at the same time. And next slide, please. So this is just showing it in action. You see that young man, he's thrilled as can be. Usually when they're at that age, they're embarrassed to have adults around, but look at him, he's like excited to go to school. And that energy can go with him throughout the day. And the next slide, please. So that I wanted to thank the school committee for taking time to hear us out, and we hope to have your blessing to move forward. This is going to be the first of many things that we want to do for our students, because again, it's up to us as community to step up for our children. You don't have to be a parent to participate. You don't have to have a child in a certain school. We just need to support and love on our children so that they can be successful. And did you want to say anything? All right, so.
So I just wanted to say a few quick words. Knowing a lot of the youth in our community and knowing a lot of the struggles that we all have between community educators, teachers, paraprofessionals, the entire Newport community, we definitely have stuff going on that we're trying to work with. And I think a lot of that preemptive measures can be solved by actively showing up time and time again, not only for the children who are struggling, but also for that child who is an exceptionally bright child. This is something that does not single out any children to support them. And I believe if we foster that environment from our community to our parents to our schools, then a lot of those negative behaviors that we're trying to discipline out won't be as apparent as much, because our children will feel like we love them, we care for them, and we want them in school. Thank you.
And then I want to introduce Mitchell Jackson. He's one of the leaders of the Strong Male Unity Group, so we're going to collaborate with them on a few things as well.
I want to say thank you to St. Kofa, Nico Merritt, and Jessica, sorry. This is what we've been asking for. I'm pretty much here to kind of sell the male portion as well as bringing positive role models. This is what the community's been asking for years. It's been many years that we are asking for help, but no one wants to move on it. This is our opportunity to have adult leaders. This is our time to come together as many as our diversified community is. We get to come out and support our kids on their endeavors, that they can actually see a future instead of just wondering where they're going to end up at the end of the day. And I'm here to support as well as continue to collaborate with other nonprofits as well as profit leaders in our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I like the program very much. I think it would be great to have the kids greeted. The only concern I have is before you do it, you're going to have an issue with parking at the 3 different schools if the different adults are driving in. So you'd have to work something out with the schools or the police department so they know what's going on. Because I hope you get a good number of people to participate. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Superintendent.
Let us know when you're.
Mrs. Gaines?
Nico, I thought you said this would be done throughout the year at various times. Did I see something there about 3 times after the first, maybe like every quarter?
Yes, I don't know if it will work, but I'm just saying that.
That's a possibility.
One meeting, one thing doesn't work.
Right.
Repeating and filling them with other things, so that's why I'm
Motion? That was, yeah, that's great.
Any other questions? Dr. Flowers?
No, I just comment that I think you had used the word diversity, the diversity of our community. And it would be, for youngsters to see successful people who look like themselves. And I think that's important too. And women too, who have succeeded. And in many different ways, yeah. I know you really have to, you want to target the young boys, the preteens, teens, and so forth. But I mean, this can go on in a lot of directions, and it should be worthwhile too.
I forgot to mention that the people who started this initiative in Providence want to come out and show support. So like Kobe Bennett, like the Anderson, they all want to come when we do our first one, just to say we're here to support the lawyers and professionals.
How are you recruiting?
So I've been doing like word of mouth until I get approval. So if I get approval for it, we're gonna go full out. Like,
Okay.
Strong unity, strong unity, is working with us. I have other community business owners that are on board. So once we get the green light, we can go for it.
Great. Are you ready for a motion?
Ms. Bowen?
I would like to make a motion that, that we accept the proposal should we say from Sankofa, to come into our schools and present the strong, we call it the strong mail, strong handshake initiative here in Newport Public Schools under the direction of our superintendent, I guess.
And we are assuming that superintendent recommends this?
Yes, we do. I just spoke to Mr. Galvin, and I had shared this with Ms. Merritt and with Mr. Jackson, the concern just about BCI, but if it's outside, I think we'll be able to handle all that.
I second the motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you guys very
Mr.
much.
Hanos, I just wanted to say, if you get a chance, Google Gentlemen's Club. It's something with, what?
Be careful. Be careful when you Google that.
It's
Better have a
I think that's what
direct
it's
link.
called. It's at the elementary school. I think, I'm going to look it up. No, it's an incredible thing set up for elementary school kids and teaching them how to be gentlemen. But there's enough. Everybody else, okay, I'm not in that part of the world. They'd be like,
Carlin might know where that
I'm going to look in, I
we-
think that's what it's called, though.
Do we have lights? We can turn the lights
Yes.
back on.
Can you wipe that off the TV? Now I'm gonna look it up because now you made me embarrassed.
All right. Next are discussions. We have a discussion on the snow day new rule implementation. From what I understand from the superintendent, you can explain it better than I, but I don't believe there's any action to be had on this. A discussion. The state of Rhode Island is developing some new rules on snow days, but they don't really have anything to offer just yet. Is that correct?
That is correct. This was a request to be put on the agenda for this evening, and the Rhode Island Department of Ed is going to be providing districts with a guideline, and that guideline will not be out until the beginning of December.
Okay, so we have no real discussion on that. The next discussion
this
item
time.
is
We just maybe notify parents that because they've already started on the health and page asking, like, what's the new snow day policy?
Oh.
Okay.
Have to do.
okay.
So I'm like, I just want to prevent, a fire.
We'll put it out.
So,
That
okay,
currently
we'll
is-
put it out.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
And then the next item for discussion is the Pell School start time. So those of you who have sat through the meeting so far, and we're glad you have, because there's a lot of things we need parent involvement in. The discussion would be, at this point in time, for the emails and the requests and the concerns and the notifications or lack thereof, or the late notifications of the way that the school busing and the start times for this Pell School had been implemented. I will turn the mic over to the superintendent to explain briefly what had transpired and how it transpired, and then for those of you that have waited, would be your time. I would give you each 3 minutes to speak on the issue, and we'll just have a discussion on it and see where that brings us. But Superintendent Germain.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for background, as I provided for the school committee, and also I did have a specific parent ask me a question, so I provided this as background. The bus company informed the school department after reviewing the new enrollments from locations in our city that they did not drive last year, and the traffic volume increases in the afternoon, that they discovered they would not be able to get 5 buses to Pell Elementary School on time for a 3:15 dismissal. This could mean as many as 250, 300 children that would be delayed. We were told even if the company added 5 buses, and I want to thank Mr. Rivers, he's here today, so if I misspeak, please speak up, that even if they added 5 buses for the afternoon bus run, only from Pell, They felt that they were most likely not getting drivers that would take the jobs, and they do not have 5 buses on site here to add to that fleet. It would also be an additional cost of $170K. They reported to me they did several routing practices and runs throughout the city during the summer to see if anything could fix this. When they realized it could not be addressed, they came to see our interim business manager, Mr. Roy and me. I asked what was needed to make it work so that all buses would be at the school on time. They suggested a 3:30 dismissal. I was very upset and shared that this was unacceptable. The bottom line, though, was the school was starting in 2 weeks. I spoke to my building principal, and after discussion, she supported the suggestion because it would be the safest option. I supported her and shared the information with members of the school committee. The decision was made to put it on a special meeting agenda for the next Monday. The building principal and bus supervisor attended the meeting and shared their thinking with the committee. The committee agreed to open the building at 8:30 for breakfast and for any and all students that may have need to be dropped off earlier due to the later start. I also believe the decision was based on whether it was better to change before school started rather than after it began, because people would already be in their routines and would at least have some, albeit not a lot, time to make adjustments. Also, I want to explain the process of how the routes are decided in the timeline to help everyone understand. Although the contract may read that the bus company should provide the new contract earlier than this, in reality it is really tricky due to ongoing enrollments in the military transfers that occur over the summer, as well as running transportation during the month of July and early August for our summer programs. In other words, they could we could provide routes, etc., at that time, and in reality, they would have to redo them to accommodate changes in enrollment and the timing of the school year end. In other words, they would have to redo everything they did. They could come to us, say, here are your routes, and then after the enrollments start to get uploaded, they will realize that they can't do it. This past year was an anomaly. School ended on June 30th, which we vow we're never going to do that again. And summer school enrichments began July 10th and ended in early August. During the time the bus companies supporting the programs, students are in summer school earning credits or involved in some of our credit-bearing enrichment programs. So the bus company is getting ready for the new school year while also transporting us. This is just to give everyone context. At the end of July, the first week of August, the bus company gets the new upload of students from the school district and addresses for the new school year. This removes all graduating seniors that have just left and adds any new students as of that time that we have at enrollment. The bus company uploads the information we send, does the routing, makes adjustments from the previous year. During the entire month of August, we have the military arrive, more new registrations are entered, and each assignment and routing uploaded, sent to the bus company, and each Friday in August we upload so that they can have the latest enrollments. The week before and during school, almost twice a week, we upload to the bus company so that we can have all our students assigned busing. Let's see. And then at late August and early September, we continue to do the uploads because literally 2 days after school has started, we're still enrolling students. I'm truly sorry for all this upset. I do believe that everyone is trying to do what is best for our students and community, and I'm sorry parents were not involved more in this decision as the earlier one. My learning lesson walking away from tonight, as I shared with all of you, we need to communicate and outreach more with you. I hope on Tuesday, tonight, we can come to some agreeable solution. So that was the backup. I wanted the audience to hear that as well, because I realized when I was sending information to the parent about how this all evolved, it was literally as week and week went by, things started to unfold. The bus company, as I shared with you, does have a contract, does have specific timelines in it that they have to provide us information. The reality of is if on July 1st of 2017 they gave us those new routes and showed us what the routing would be, by mid-August they'd have to redo everything because of new enrollments and changes that come forward. And that is happening even now, today, as we get new enrollments that are coming into our district. That's just to set the tone, set the context, and to make sure everyone's aware of the process. So thank you.
Thank you.
If you could just state your name, please, Mr. Tursky.
Yes, sir, Mr. Hanos. My name is Mike Tursky. Mr. Germain, thank you for that email. My name is Mike Tursky Jr. My wife and I live on 27 Thurston Avenue. Our two boys, 6 and 7 years old, go to this school, first and second graders. First, let me thank you all for your time and dedication. I know this is hard for you guys, being school board members. No matter your intentions for being here, you're underpaid, more just underappreciated, okay? And I appreciate the time you guys have taken for this. With that said, I politely remind you, you serve the community, specifically the taxpayers, parents, and students of this Newport. Your only true goal should be to represent us and our interests, and you have failed recently. With your vote to delay the start of school for the second year in a row until 9 a.m. at Pell, and with that vote passed just 1 week prior to the start of school, is inconceivable, intolerable, inconsiderate, and grossly negligent. Doing some research, according to the US Census, the start time for work, the average worker, is 7:55 a.m., and for school is 8:05. I do not think it is appropriate to look to the school as a daycare, but I do expect schools to work better to align with the average worker. With this decision, you have placed more burden on the people of Newport, on the people you serve. Newport is getting harder and harder to afford to live in and less attractive to be a full-time resident, and you have only added to this dilemma. The impact is tremendous, and I can't help but feel you look no further than the end of your noses. Your placement of burden with such a disregard is unbelievable and unacceptable. Your justification behind a vote needs not only to be presented to the community, but processed by that community. Your job is to do your best to get a feel for your community and take action accordingly. That does not happen in one meeting, especially when that decision takes effect in 1 week. There is no recording of this meeting via audio, video, or even transcript. So how are people even supposed to know how you came to this decision? To change the start or end time of the school based on the request of a bus company is ridiculous to me. I have Mr. May's reasonings, the same that led to your vote at the last meeting. I do not agree with them. But what is done is done. My point for speaking at this time is not the subject voted on, but the manner it was executed. I will say that this bus company is failing significantly, and I am appalled that you would put the burden on your community rather than on the school bus company. I do not believe all that could be done was done. If it had been, this vote would not have been rushed and done with such little notice. I will not play armchair quarterback and say you could have made a better decision with the later start, but your execution and lack of foresight is of great concern. The prior meeting was inappropriate because you did not allow the community you serve time to hear, process, and respond to this problem through appropriate channels. I understand the Newport school population fluctuates in size, but there's no excuse for this lack of limited time and notification. I would go into an angry tirade of your gross and overstep of your position of power, discuss how your decision ultimately dictated the lives of this community, but that would not be productive. I respectfully but sternly remind you whose interests you serve. You should be ashamed in this failure as a whole. It may be the right decision, but it is my opinion you made an ill-informed, knee-jerk decision for which you should be ashamed on the way you made it. When you leave tonight, go ahead, do not hold your head high, but hang in contemplation on how you can better serve your community. I end with this. I respect your decision to take an important and demanding position in the service of your community. I even applaud you for it. And I want to make a point to thank Mr. Hanos and Mr. Carlin for making thoughtful votes. Obviously, you two understood the bigger picture. I pray, in the future, the interests of those who elected you are better served. Thank you.
Hello, I'm here again. Ida Neary. I have a first grader and a third grader at Pell. You've all heard from me because I've emailed you over and over again. So I will not belabor the point. I am just as angry, disappointed, feel disrespected, all of that. Great. I think every Pell parent feels that way. A couple of things. that I think go speak to the fact that parents were not consulted. So a couple things. One, yes, definitely, Newport, people move and they come in and they come out, but 900 new children do not show up in September at Pell. They don't. We have 900 kids, maybe 50 kids show up, maybe 15 kids show up. And so if the bus company feels like, well, we're gonna have to redo it in August, then redo it in August. That's your job. Period. That's your job. That is what we pay you for. I don't understand why, same thing, I don't understand why we have to change an academic schedule to fit a bus schedule. There was a contract. You signed the contract. If you are not able to fulfill the terms of the contract, then let somebody else fulfill the terms of the contract. So that's number one. Number two, had parents been consulted, we could have come up with maybe different ways of doing things. So maybe instead of starting at 9 a.m., maybe, let's look at the science and go, maybe we start at 8 a.m. for the elementary school children, because it is really the high school children and the middle school kids who do need more sleep. Granted, absolutely. So how about we move the elementary school children earlier? Maybe that's not the best solution, but no input from parents, so that doesn't come up as a solution. Maybe we can have different types of buses. So instead of having bus number 13 that makes 12 stops, maybe we split that route into two and it's an express bus, so that one bus makes 7 stops and another one makes 6 stops. Oh, or there are 1,000 different ways that we could have thought through, and maybe would have come up with the final solution that it's a 9 a.m. start. But the fact that we were not consulted meant that you deprived yourselves of the input of the community, of really, really smart people who want the best for their children. So if there is one thing I hope that you learn, is that you need input from parents. These are our children. These are our children, and you did inconvenience all of us, an entire city, by changing the start time. Some of us are starting late. Some people have to drop off their children. Some people have had to change shifts. I mean, can you think about the ramifications of that decision? Because with all due respect, and I don't know where you are, person from the bus company, but do your job. I'm sorry, but do your job. It's your contract. Figure it out and fix it. You fix it. If you have to do it twice, do it twice.
Thank you, Ada.
I mean, that
Thank
just
you.
is. Kendra's going to come right after me.
Good evening. My name is Kendra Munter. I live at 22 Homer Street. I have a third grader daughter here at Pell. I just wanted to address the safety concern that was sent out in the email, and the fact that, looking at it from a parent, I see we are actually creating safety issues. If you've looked at the bus schedule, you'll see there are stops at 4:35 p.m. December 18th, the sun sets at 4:08. You will have kindergartners getting off the bus in dark. You'll have second graders who, by law, can walk home by themselves, walking home in the dark. I just want to make sure that you are aware of this fact. These kids are on buses for an hour and 5 minutes. This is ridiculous. I mean, this is crazy to have little kids on a bus for an hour and 5 minutes. And I don't know if anyone's been at the school for evening pickup lately, but this is turning into a disaster. You have cars backed up onto my Antinomy Ave. Bridge construction starts on the 19th, which is going to lead to a whole other new disaster of cars all over the island. And I think we're just going to be in for a big shock come a week Monday of what's going to happen with buses sitting in traffic, kids getting home later, cars, parents rushing to the school, because if you have a high schooler or a middle schooler and they're in after-school sports, you're trying to get your Pell student to take them to get them to their game, and it's just going to become a nightmare of cars and traffic in front of Pell that I think we need to look at and address, along with the bus schedule and the change of time, because the change of time had a ripple effect for all families, working, non-working. If your kids are in any kind of after-school activities, you have been affected, because it has created just so many problems that probably could have been avoided if we looked. And also, I would like to say, before I quickly sign off, Getting back to communication, we want to be part. We want to hear. And I would also like to point out, when we email, it'd be really great if I heard back. I sent 2 emails. I heard back from 2 people, Dave Carlin and Carlin. Out of 7 school committee members and the superintendent, 2 emailed me back. That, if I ran my job like that, I would be unemployed. My boss would say that is not excusable. You cannot not answer emails from clients, because we are basically a client. We are your taxpayers, we are your parents, we deserve to be heard, and we should be at least acknowledged. Even if it's, thank you for your email, we will look into this. The very basic would be really appreciated. And that's all I have to say, so thank you.
Thank you.
Jennifer Jackson, 38 Dudley Ave, a 3rd and a 7th grader. I don't want to put the blame solely on the bus. We already gone over how parents feel as though our word and our thoughts weren't thought of, and we've come across that. But I don't put the blame fully on the bus company. I mean, they do their best. You know, you can't foresee Broadway construction, the bridge construction. And I think where we are running into the biggest problem is we start our school day in the middle of town at Thompson, distribute the kids, and then have to go all the way to the other side of town to Rogers, pick up those kids, distribute those children, and then find our way back to Pell. And then when you get to Pell, there's so much congestion. And possibly start considering letting the car pickup and the walkers out 15 minutes early to clear up that congestion of the car pickup line, because there will literally be cars on the street on Dexter waiting to turn in to go to the car pickup. So if we clear that out, we allow room for the buses to come in. I think the bus company does the best they can. I think the school committee is trying to do the best. But again, I think as parents and as the community, we just feel as though our voices and our concerns aren't being asked or given the chance to be told. So I think we need to sit down and really reconsider our forms of communication amongst each other. We always hear you want parent involvement, and I'm gonna be quite honest, I feel as though that the door can be slammed in my face a lot, or I do not have enough information even though I'm out there begging and searching for it. So there is a disconnect, but I do not blame the bus company. I give them credit for doing the best they can. I think we need to find designated stop areas and say to the parents, I'm not having the bus stop every other block, because I've been behind a bus where it stops on every other block. No, walk that block down to your child. And if busing, is it a necessary or is it a privilege? You know, it's the parent's duty to make sure their child gets to school. So if the parent has to walk an extra block or 2 to allow the child to get on the bus, then as a parent, you need to figure that out. And with having Thompson an hour and 15 minutes before Pell, that takes away a lot of time for the parent who might have said to the junior high kid, hey, get you and your brother on the same bus stop, bring them over that way, and I know that so-and-so will be there with their child. Well, now you got this big hour and 15-minute gap, and parents have to compensate and figure out what are you gonna do with the youngest child for that hour and 15 minutes. And again, lack of communication, I think, is our biggest issue, and lack of open door policy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Julia Merkel. I have 2 students at Pell School, a 2nd grader and a kindergartner. I would like to just speak for the hundreds of parents who are not here this evening. Newport is a unique community, and it's one that we are very grateful to be a part of. There are many people in our community who could not get babysitters this evening, who maybe don't speak English and didn't feel they could participate in this meeting. They need to be represented, they need to be given a voice, they need to be given an avenue for communication. It's something that, is very interesting to be here this evening. I plan to attend more of these meetings, and I'm really grateful to be welcomed here. But there was a common theme here: lack of communication, lack of outreach to parents, and so I hope that, I think that is heard. But clearly that is a fundamental issue here, and for our unique, special community, it's critical that we get a handle on that to truly make this one Newport and to help us succeed. And I hope that as we move forward into actual solutions and get into the details here, which we need to do, as an entire community, you, the school board, administration, parents, staff, everyone involved, I hope that all will be considered. You know, my husband and I are fortunate enough to be able to drop our children off in the morning should our schedules warrant that. Other parents are not. They rely on these buses. They themselves potentially use the public bus system to get themselves to work. This is not the community to put this burden on. Okay? Other communities may be able to handle this better at the last minute. Ours cannot. Thank you for listening.
I'm back. I'm calmer, mostly calmer, because communication's been brought up. I wonder if there's a way to create or to have regular forums, or fora, I guess, with the school committee and the superintendent for Rogers parents and Thompson parents and Pell parents. Not school committee meetings, but forums where we have conversations about whatever is coming up, whatever issues are coming up, or whatever, anything that you want, that you feel that maybe we should have input on. They wouldn't be school committee meetings. We wouldn't have to vote on anything, but that would be a way to have communication with parents at Rogers, at Thompson, and at Pell, so that situations like these don't necessarily arise. And maybe also in some schools, just simply putting a suggestion box that is for parents so they can send a suggestion to the school committee. Or, you know, most of us are on Facebook, or a school committee Facebook group where the minutes of these meetings could be posted and we could ask you questions directly. There are different ways to have communication with us. And we want to be partners in this endeavor of educating our children. Not just manning the PTO table, but true partners in what we do for our children. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We do actually have an app that we rolled out last year that works quite well. If you want to send a notification to the school committee, it buzzes me directly. It pings my phone instantly. You can send things anonymously. We can send that out in an email again for those of you that may have missed it last year. It's everybody seems to have a smartphone of some sort or something they carry on them. It's actually a pretty good tool to report good, bad, indifferent, whatever news, and it does go directly to someone. Those get answered just about. We can't answer them if they're anonymous, but the input is always still there. But
and they're posted immediately, as Mr. Hanos said. And as far as when parents or anyone reach out, even teachers, the open door policy is still in effect. So, Ms. Jackson, if you're trying to get through my door, you should be able to get through it. So let's make sure people are aware of that. But it's a great app. We will send something out again to notify people of it.
Mr. Carlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't want to relive the vote that we took 2 weeks ago yesterday. What I do want to do is call attention to the Newport This Week article of Thursday, August 31st, with the headline, School Committee Approves Change to Pell Schools Hours. And the reason I'm calling this to anybody's attention who cares to hear it is because there's language in the article referring to the Durham School Services General Manager, John Rivers, who I know is here this evening. There's language in the article that says, it's not a quote of Mr. Rivers, but Rivers said he's been discussing the issue, the busing issue, the Pell School issue, with the superintendent since Durham became the district's busing service last year. I want to ask the superintendent directly, is that correct? Have you been discussing this with him since they became the bus service for Newport last year?
I've been discussing the bus routing the entire time, yes. Even if you remember, Mr. Carlin, last September and October, we were very challenged as far as getting the routes set and clear. If you also remember, we also had to adjust some times at Thompson just to start to get the routing set in place. And then as the year went on, we continued to look at the different ways we could transport the children more effectively. So since the beginning of time when we entered into this relationship with Durham, I have been meeting with them and discussing this with them. If you are speaking to that we would have to change times this year, anything of that nature, no. Mr. Rivers and his regional manager tried, and they worked over the new addresses and everything, and I appreciated them coming in as soon as they realized they couldn't make it work.
Mr. Chairman, can we ask Mr. Rivers to come to the podium to answer some questions, please?
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Rivers. When was the first time that you notified the superintendent that you couldn't make the Pell run in time?
Excuse me. Approximately 2 weeks before we met with you folks.
Did you discuss the concerns about the Pell pickups and drop-offs any time before that with the superintendent?
For this specific year or ongoing?
Well, I mean, this is your first year of the contract, so for this specific year.
Second year.
Second year.
I'm sorry, for this specific school year.
Oh, for this specific school year. Go ahead. Did you have something?
No, for this specific school year, had you mentioned, so in other words, well, let me ask it in a two-part way. For this specific school year, yes, but also for the 16-17 school year. Had you discussed with the superintendent the concerns you have about the Pell School pickup and drop-off, or drop-off and pickup?
Since we took over the contract from the previous company, there's been ongoing discussions about the routes. The timing, the buses were arriving at the schools in the afternoon were particularly the main source of concern. Even as it stands now, before you change the time, the morning routes worked. We don't have any difficulties getting to the schools on time in the morning. What we found was that each afternoon, it took an average of 15 to 17 minutes longer to perform the same route we did in the morning in the afternoon due to the added traffic. We also, and I heard some folks mention splitting routes and express buses. There's 5 buses in particular because of the area they travel in and the distance they have to travel with the traffic. They only have 2 stops each bus. So adding, splitting the route, adding more buses would just create more buses getting stuck in the traffic in those same areas.
All I want to know is why.
Yes, so to answer your question, yes, there have been ongoing discussions from the time we took over the contract up until now.
About this issue?
About the issue of arriving at the schools on time in the afternoon.
Superintendent Germain, why was this only brought to the school committee's attention on August the 27th? And why didn't we bring it to the parents' attention or have much more of an advanced discussion about this serious issue? I'm hearing the same concerns repeated over and over and over again this evening. We have a disastrous communication problem in the Newport Public Schools. What's the answer?
Mr. Carlin, if you remember from meetings, and if we go back at the minutes, probably September, October, possibly November, and even in January, February, March, we have been talking about the buses, and we have, if you look at my weekly updates to you, I've been sharing this all along. So I've been making everyone clearly aware, and the bus company has been trying their best, and as we went further, clearly aware of when we had bus problems. They are in my updates.
Perhaps I missed the updates. Why didn't we deal with it then during these multiple occasions when you were giving us updates rather than dealing with it on August the 27th, 8 days before the start of the school year?
Because Mr. Carlin, as Mr. Rivers shared, 2 weeks before school was about to open, they realized they were not going to be able to make the times.
We have a very unique situation here in Newport because you don't ever have like a cutoff point for enrollment. even this past weekend, I worked all weekend redeveloping routes. Monday morning, I came into emails for new students added, changes of addresses. All of those routes I worked on over the weekend were tore up and started over again. So it's a constant state of flux that we're in. Even trying to provide information to the school, who's on what bus, I can send them a list on Monday. On Wednesday, I have to send them a whole new list because that's how quickly the things here in Newport change.
I know you can't speak for the prior bus company, but why did I not have these concerns, or why did the school committee and the superintendent and the parents apparently not have these concerns presented to us by the former bus company? By the way, how much is the contract?
I believe they did, Mr.
multiple
Carlin.
millions of dollars. How much is the contract, the 3-year contract worth for
That,
Durham?
I don't have that figure off the top of my head.
Mr. Roy, do you have the contract for Durham bus services, what the school department pays Durham bus services for the 3-year contract?
I believe it is 1.3 million around that.
All right, $1.3 million we pay.
Now, I can't speak to what the previous company was doing. All I can speak to is the differences I know about. One of the big differences is the order of the schools changed. There's also more students enrolled. Not to mention the amount of extras that are added into the routes. Newport has a lot of programs throughout the many different schools. And in order to save money, we incorporate as many of those programs into the routes as possible. You have dance classes out of Pell that get added to routes. We drop off at the Boys and Girls Club, daycares. We have out-of-district students, displaced students, that we also incorporate into the routes to save you the cost of having to add more buses. So
Thank you, Mr.
again,
Chairman.
I can't speak to what the previous company was doing.
I'm sorry, Ms. Jackson?
I said that I think there was problems with the previous company too, with not being able to be late. I think the biggest issue is that you got drivers in the middle, in the traffic, in the bridge, that you can't foresee.
Ms. Boland?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, so first of all, Kendra, I think I did try to email you back and about setting up this meeting tonight, like making sure that it was a discussion item on the agenda so we could all discuss it. So I didn't completely ignore you. But second of all, I think, like, for me, I know that I've totally learned my lesson, okay? That by not involving the community, you know, just the damage it did. But you have to understand that in that moment, when the principal comes to you and the superintendent comes to you and they say it's a safety issue and they need your support, you know, you had to have been in that moment to know why we did that, okay? Why some of us voted that way. And now I see that it's a bigger safety issue on the other side, and I'm really concerned about what Kendra just said about 4:30 and the and kids, you know, getting picked up in the dark. I'm
sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but every school bus company, every school year, at the beginning of the year, will make adjustment for times. In reality, the time now that we're picking up Pell is only 5 minutes later than what we averaged last year. Now, when we do these routes, we have to route every student on a bus, every one of them, because we don't know ahead of time who's going to be using those buses or the stops. So after a couple of weeks go by, we actually start taking kids off the buses, redoing, you know, adjustments. So those times will improve. So if a parent's concerned that, you know, the schedule shows they're going to be home 5 minutes of 5 in the afternoon, that's pretty unlikely once we do those revisions and get the times more
So you'll
accurate.
think you'll have them home before?
Yes, because actually last year for Pell Elementary School, the buses averaged arriving here between 3:20 and 3:25. Your dismissal is 3:30 now. That's 5 minutes different than what we were averaging last year.
Okay, so my next question is, what do we do next? You know, like, it's too far gone, we can't make a change, we can't make adjustments. I'm not sure, you know, what our options are as, you know, as a community and as a school committee, you know, to this issue. You know, were there any other thoughts? I think that, they have some very legitimate concerns, but, once we, changed it, you're also going to have a lot of people now on the other side, they're going to be angry with you for changing it back. But, how do we get that input? Do we suggest a community meeting on this and invite people? Do we use that as a communication? Because like some of you said, people that are here that aren't, communicating their thoughts. So I'm not sure, what our next step is, I guess. But I'm very sorry that I, that night made the decision.
Can I just comment to this point
Yeah.
in particular? Hi, I'm sorry, I'm cutting, but she said I could. My name is Sarah. I have a second grader and a kindergartner. They love Pell. I think I'm feeling a little bit frustrated. I agree with Mr. Tursky in that you are all certainly underpaid and underappreciated. But with all due respect, a group of deeply committed and concerned parents respectfully asked for a meeting before school started. We only needed 4 of you to commit to that meeting, and only 3 of you had the courage to say yes. We can sit here all day. We can sit here all day and question whether or not the bus route should change or whether or not people made the right decision at the right time, but you're saying that you want to be part of a solution that involves parent engagement. We begged you for a meeting. I, in fact, implored you to simply give us the courtesy of saying that you would or would not meet with us, because my husband and I both work and needed to secure childcare, and with days before, we still didn't hear. So we are being asked to be partners in education, and it is almost 9 o'clock. I haven't seen my kids yet today, but I'm here because this matters. And I'm just asking that you please treat us with the same respect. And if you ask to be our partner back.
Hi, my name is Tanea Butler, and I live at 143 Gibbs. I have a child in kindergarten, 1st grade, 5th grade, and 10th grade. I also am a Durham bus driver, and I can tell you for one, last year I had Fort Adams kids, and I had 4 Fort Adams kids. I used to have to bring the Fort Adams at 3:05, and from 3:05 to get here at 3:15, how do you expect me to get here from Fort Adams to here in 3:15? 7 minutes or 5 minutes you're giving me, fighting traffic. Some of you Newporters don't do the speed limit around here, and you do side streets. Bus drivers can't do that. We have to stay behind the car. If this car's doing 5 miles an hour sightseeing, we have to sightsee with this car. We can't go around this car because this car's going slow. So a lot of you parents should understand that as a bus driver, our safety is your child. We can do 35 miles an hour, but then it's the safety of stopping and these kids falling and all this other stuff. The other thing is kindergarten and 1st grade parents. So if you have a child coming home past 4 o'clock, a lot of the times it's a kindergarten and 1st grader that we can't get a parent to come to the bus stop to meet their child. So half the time we have to come back, do a circle around, or come back to Pell to drop the child off. So maybe we need more communication with a lot of these parents that have kindergartens and 1st graders, and instead of throwing it on the bus, we're worried about your child's safety, not about speeding to get to where we need to go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry. Safety. I think she brings up a great point. Safety is not having a parent there at the bus stop, right? Or speeding. We don't want our bus drivers doing that. I mean, I actually remember last year there was a bus driver that hurt a lot of kids, flipped his bus. Why do you guys keep harping on safety, though? They have the right to say that. What are you guys concerned about with safety? I'm confused by what you mean by safety of my child. The safety of my child is providing an appropriate time to get to school, not a week out. So I'm confused why safety is your safeguard. I feel like you're using it as a safe word. Oh, well, it's safety. That doesn't give you the right to change the times. Don't use that word and not justify it. You're not justifying it to me. You have not justified it at all. I hear safety. You're scaring me, but you're not telling me what safety is at risk.
Okay, what we were presented with that day, and anybody correct me if I'm wrong, was that these children ranging from 200 and something were here at the school without adequate supervision, and there were it was causing many problems trying to contain these 300 kids almost for that 15 to 20 minutes before the buses showed up. And so I'm just telling you, this is what we were brought, you know, and so, as I said, you know, I voted to support the principal and the superintendent.
I could understand that, and I appreciate that. But again, I think the bus drivers have taken it a little personally, which I could understand too. But this is an administrative problem from the bus company. They are hired, they are contracted, this is their job. Okay? I understand there's a fluctuation in the number of students we get, but that falls on this administration. You need to be better prepared for that fluctuation. You cannot sit there and say, well, it's open enrollment and all of a sudden, hey, we have an extra 200 students today. That's not, you cannot base numbers off of that. You have to have some idea and have some buffer to give yourself. And then for the bus company to sit there and say, well, we can't do this and we can't do that because numbers keep changing. Figure it out. It's an administrative problem. It's not a bus driver problem. It's not a parent problem. It's not a safety problem. It's an administrative problem that you need to address. You need to prepare yourselves better for the numbers coming in next year. Estimate, overestimate, I don't care, but you need to do something along those lines because you can't sit there and claim safety, okay, or claim, well, the influx of this many students. Figure it out.
Mr. Tursky, may I reply?
Sure.
Mr. Tursky, the enrollment situation here in Newport has been ongoing before I even arrived. And as you heard earlier, they bring in experts to do enrollment projections. And they do, and then from those enrollment projections, we look at the staffing. We even contact the military and try to find out how many people will be coming. And the military has been good working with the coordinator and the liaison for the schools. But it is something, I have to tell you, we've had over 52 new freshmen. I would never have expected that to come in. I'm just saying.
I can understand
I
that.
appreciate and I understand what you're saying, and we will continue to try to do our best.
My rebuttal to that is, again, I emailed you so I could educate myself.
Right.
Looking tonight, I poking around, I actually found a slideshow, okay, of your projections for, it wasn't for this year, but I think last year, okay? It said kindergarten 2015, 187 students. Do you know what the projection for the following year for first grade was? 187 students. You're expecting the school population to stay exactly the same.
No, I'm not.
Well, that's what that projection said on that slideshow.
Right, but
So that's the information I'm going off of.
You may be leaping, because what happens there is meaning that you saw 187 and you may have been leaping saying, okay, so that's how they got the 187 for the following year. What we do is we look at the trends in the students coming in and moving out at different grade levels.
I can understand and appreciate what you're trying to say, but again, when I look at that slideshow, I could show it to you right now, it's on your website, okay? It literally, it's not just one class, it was every single class projected like that. I can pull it up on my computer. I pulled it up, to educate myself.
Okay.
Maybe that's how you do your projections, but that doesn't seem very smart to me. So that's all. I just think from an administrative standpoint and a bus administrative standpoint, they need to get it figured out.
Okay, I will just share that I do not personally do the enrollment projections. We are part of the New England School and NESDEC, and they do the enrollment projections. I will go back and look at the slide, though. Okay, thank you.
All I'm saying is the administration shows that you do the projections, you figure out the school.
No, she doesn't do the projections. I just have to add one more thing. The building of Pell is really pretty, but the construction of how to get the buses and the cars and the walkers up this hill is bad, because I've sat at the bottom of the street for 5 minutes waiting for these cars and everybody to load and pick up, and even had cars parked on the other side of the road where we can't make the turn, and we got to wait for a cop to come and find somebody that went and ran up the street to get their child because they didn't want to wait in that line. Maybe we need to do something about that, why children are coming home late in the afternoon too from school. There's times where I've sat in front of this school where I've got here at 3:05 and waited till about 3:30 to get my kids to load and to leave, and have time waiting for them to sit, because we can't move unless these kids are seated either. So that's another thing we need to look at, is the schooling and pickup and the buses and the walkers. Maybe if we let the walkers and the people that get picked up first, and then let the drivers come in, the bus drivers come in, maybe that will lessen some of the time of the lateness of the people going. And also I can say there's been plenty of times where I've been on the road and had to get called back because a child was put on a bus that wasn't supposed to be, or a child got on the wrong bus. So that's just something else I wanted to put out there. Thank you.
In the spirit of suggestions, may I suggest also looking at simply the geography of our schools? So having a bus route that goes Pell, Thompson, Rogers, or Rogers, Thompson, Pell. That's all I'm saying. That's geography. Thank you. So start times and geography. Thank you.
Beth Cullen, 19 Bayside Avenue. It's been an interesting meeting, and I've been thinking about a lot of different things, but what's coming to me first is communication and community connections. And in 1997, I was on a strategic planning team for the Newport Public Schools, and we talked about community outreach, parent involvement, PR, you know, all these things 20 years ago. Yesterday, I attended a meeting with Sandy and Kathy and Jean Marie Napolitano and Lynn Segley. It was the liaison meeting between the school committee and the city council. And I sat there, it was at 1 o'clock in the afternoon at the library. And I sat there and I listened to these 4 women who I've known for 25 years. And I thought, our kids are kind of screwed right now because they're not dealing with the real issues. We have slogans, One Newport. I don't feel like I'm in One Newport right now. I feel like I'm in a place that you're all getting attacked, but I think you deserve it tonight. Some decisions have been made that were not scientifically thought out. Everybody knows that reads any scientific educational journals, little kids should be going to school before the high school and middle school kids. That's an easy one. There's just a lot that isn't being addressed. Where is the staff? Why are the kids sneaking out of Rogers? Where are the teachers? Where are the staff here? Kathy said there was one personnel person getting the kids on the buses. One? How many teachers work here? I don't understand, but a lot has to change with the leadership. Thank you.
I just want to clarify something. It wasn't the buses, it was the pickups.
Doesn't matter. One personnel is not enough.
Well, there've been more since then.
Dr. Flowers?
Yes, I've been sitting here and I've taken some notes. Please bear with me, Mr. Chairman. The meeting yesterday was the school committee council liaison meeting, and we really, I don't want to use Mrs. Cullen's expression, but I think the fact that the school committee and the council have finally, over the 52 years that I've been an educator, actually are talking to one another is something to be celebrated. So much. I was one of the people on the school committee who understood that we were going to have another meeting for another reason, as my colleague to my right had indicated in one of his emails, that we were going to be meeting about something else, and I think it had to do with the new hires. So I had figured, fine, at that particular meeting, I guess we could add to the agenda, let's hash out this whole business about the bus schedule and the opening time at Pell. Okay. Not enough people said they would do it. Fine. Even at that, I would never promise on how I'm going to vote. Because I don't know how I'm going to vote on an issue until all of the data are presented to me, until I see all sides of an issue. People know, they hear me say that. I don't hold to the practice of, well, let's decide ahead of time. That's something else. We won't talk about ethics right now. Concerning the bus company, the present bus company, having some difficulty with the pickups actually in the afternoon. The dropping off, if the first day of school was any indication of, to me as a professional educator, a smooth first day, they did a pretty darn good job. I think what was mentioned, I believe the young lady who mentioned, if we could get the walkers and the pickups, the car pickups, moving out, that would simplify matters a great deal. Again, I'm speaking from many years of experience. People are probably tired of hearing me say it, but I'm going to say it anyway. The afternoon buses have had a tough time when we had a lot of neighborhood schools, or the fact that we have one elementary school now. Many times I stood at the end of a school driveway, and you know how you look down the street and you hope the bus is coming if you stare hard enough? We did that. We did not have crossing guards except some little kids with a flag and a belt. The police officers sometimes couldn't make it to the intersection down at Harrison and Halladen Avenue. I, with some of my colleagues, would be out down there directing the kids. We're not allowed to direct traffic. I've been frightened a few times in my life, and believe me, standing out there was frightening. So I appreciate any of what the crossing guards do now. So I don't think we can put the burden on this particular bus company because they really inherited much of the situation, things that are peculiar to the city of Newport. And I use that word correctly. The bus company, in their contract, they do have the right to discuss with administration, with the school department, if some changes have to be made. We were given copies of that electronically. I saw that. Now, someone has suggested maybe we should start Pell at 8 in the morning. Okay, we could do that. So if that means we're going to go from 9 until 8, then we have to bring the dismissal time an hour earlier, I would imagine. I was accused by someone of voting for the bus company and against the kids. Perhaps it doesn't even, that comment shouldn't even be an answer. I vote to get the youngsters in and out efficiently. I won't use the word safely, I don't want to offend you. But safety is always our first and foremost. That's the main issue. But efficiency is the important point. That's why if we can get the walkers out, if we can get the kids who picked up by car, get them out quickly, then the buses can move in, and maybe that would help a bit. Sometimes adjusting the schedules, working with the teachers to get the kids out, that may work also. I've had someone approach me and say, all the schools should start at 9 o'clock. Well, no matter if we started at 8, if we start at 9, we still have to look at moving the transportation all around the city. If you're going to start changing hours, we have our personnel that we have to talk to. We have to look at the after-school activities that moving these schedules around really affects. But when we met that day, I don't think it was written in the notes, but I said, hey, if the kids are going to come in at 9, that's going to lengthen the time that some of these kiddies are going to be in the before school, I guess we call it daycare, experience. So they'll be inside here, apparently, for a while, and then they'll be out in the playground when it's good weather. If you bump it up later, then you're affecting after-school activities. We went through this when we moved the time at the high school. Many people have intimated that we, as a group, do not listen. We listen a great deal. I may not have responded to all of the emails because a lot of them were just sort of repeating. And it was just expressing your thoughts. If just hitting reply and saying, thanks for sharing, consider that done. I saw all of the chatter on Facebook. I can understand. Someone called this a disaster. No, this is not a disaster. It's a darned inconvenience for a lot of you. I can understand that. I can understand that a great deal. That's, excuse,
my children are not kiddies. This is not an inconvenience to me. My children are already signed up for Champion Childcare in the afternoon. Signing them up for Champion Childcare before school is an added expense for my family. I have a job that starts at 8 a.m.
I understand, it's an inconvenience.
Yeah. Please. I have a job that starts at 8 a.m. right now. Teachers, we don't have a lot of flexibility around our schedules. With all due respect, please have respect
which is why I had said, yeah, can we meet on whatever that date would have been? Fine. Excuse me, ma'am.
How many of us can afford to be at work late every single day without losing a job? It is more than an inconvenience. It is putting our jobs at stake. That is inconvenience?
Yes, it is. It's an
Every
yes.
single day at work. Every single day I'm late at work.
Which is why perhaps we should back it up. Maybe start at 8, I don't know. I would have to share this, have my fellow committee members look at this. Perhaps it's time to revisit it. I don't know. I'm not making a motion at this point, but I just wanted to say that this is how my stand has been, and it's not a case of voting for the company. It's trying to make things as efficient as possible. Thank you.
Anything further on this? Clearly, we need to continue to work on this. We understand that there is a large volume of folks that have to change their lifestyles to make this happen. I'm not going to relive the vote, but I know why I voted, and I would vote the same way. But to hear from you guys, it's important. Obviously, you're passionate. These are your children. These are your futures. This is your life. This is why you're here, to raise your kids, and we want to do the best we can for them up here. We try to do the best we can. A few bumps along the way. We're in the middle of a learning curve because we wanted to do better for the older kids who all the studies said would be, if we send them to school later in geography, unfortunately has that school at the wrong end of town to start those kids later. This is an effect of somebody over there that's making pretend they don't know what's going on. Rogers High School, we sent the kids to school later last year. We changed everything so we could adjust the schedule for all the statistics that everybody knows about that I don't know about. I'm a fireman, I'm not an educator. So I'm gonna go on and say, just a minute. That change, unfortunately, had an adverse and untoward effect towards how we're gonna shake out the rest of the kids in the school system. We don't have the money to just go ahead and run 2 concurrent bus lines to get the kids back and forth to school at the time. If money wasn't an issue, we wouldn't really be sitting here right now. We do have a budget which we have to live inside of, and we're doing the best we can with what we've got in front of us. Should we have communicated with the parents? That message is loud and clear. I mean, there's no stronger message from this tonight that I'm getting, is we have issues with communication and some last minute little fire drills that we're going through, which are not little fire drills. They're life. They're problematic. They're big issues in homes with youngsters and families when you have to have both parents working. It's not like it was 30 years ago when one parent could stay home. It's a way different way that we live. With all that said, I'm glad that we're having this discussion. I know some folks are mad at us. I know some folks are okay with the situation, but I think for the most part, I'll speak for myself, is the decision I make are important. Did I go ahead and say, yeah, let's have another meeting? I didn't do it out of spite or out of disrespect, but I voted my conscience. I had the courage to vote the way that I wanted to vote that evening. We all work. I haven't seen my kids either today. I worked a shift last night, I worked today, and I'm here right now after getting out. But that's fine. We're all parents here. We wouldn't be here. So I do respect you. These folks, I believe, respect everybody as well. It was a decision that we're living by right now, and we are learning. It's something that we need to address. Again, I can't say any more that I'm glad to have the discussion. My intent to come up to the Pell School was to have more people come to the school committee's meeting so we could have a lot more interaction with the families and get some more feedback from you guys. PTOs are another great avenue. The app that we have is another way to get to us. The emails, yes, you're correct. I did answer a few. I thought I answered them all. I missed a few, I suppose. But to that end, as long as the discussions remain an agreement to disagree and everybody can argue or have their opinions and respect the other person's point of view and not to cast a judgment on that person's position or what it is that they actually said, but to hear them out. And you may not be understanding what they're saying, but I'm trying to do the best I can. I can't stand in your shoes and come from all the different backgrounds that you have, but I try to understand that maybe the words you say don't exactly register, but I understand that your passion is still there. I understand the context of what it is that you're trying to say. And sometimes it's getting late, people are getting agitated. I just don't want to see a meeting that I think we're making some progress fall apart with folks starting to get excited and a little bit of a back and forth, which is, I suppose, healthy. But to continue on, we don't have a whole lot of time here left by our policy. We have a 9:30 curfew that we're done by. But Mrs. Gaines, if you have something to add.
Yeah, I haven't spoken tonight, and I would like you to know that I was not at that meeting, unfortunately, and I have taken the names of the people who sent emails that I have emails from. I have not been available. I was not available for another meeting, and I was not available for answering emails, but I have 8 people who did write to me, and you will get something from me tomorrow. But I was not at the meeting, so I don't think it's fair that I comment.
I just have a question about the Rogers thing. Why did we change the time?
That's what I was going to ask.
That say more kids are going to school now that you changed the time.
I was just going to simply ask, for the initial reason for us to change Rogers, did it work last year? And if it didn't work, maybe we need to rethink why we did that to begin with and think about going back to where we were or not. I don't know, because another question I asked is some of the behavioral issues at the junior high level, because they're tired. When most kids start puberty, it is at the junior high level. These kids are exhausted. And is that increasing our behavioral issues? Because even my daughter, she comes home and I'm like, whoa, you need to go take a nap. And that's not her character. So I think that in a nutshell, not only with the busing issue, maybe we need to have you guys re-evaluate the issue of why we changed the times to begin with, and really maybe think about Pell, Thompson, Rogers, or go back to the old school way, Rogers, Thompson, Pell. That's something else that I think would be nice to consider and look at. Did it help Rogers students? I don't think it has. From what I read.
Jennifer, that was the premise as to why we were going to change it, because the study stated that the older kids needed it. But 1 year, it's impossible to do a test in 1 year's time. How do we know yet whether that affected them in a better way or not? You need a few years for something like that to work its way out.
I can say Thompson kids are exexhausted.
Well, I agree with you.
Than the previous year that they attended.
That was the decision we made over a year ago. Before the start of school, we had to let everybody know, obviously beforehand. But I know that at the time when we did do it, it was based upon the other data that's out there that the older kids would perform better. And I know how I voted on that one too. I didn't vote for that one either, but that's okay. That's why we did it. We may need to look at it. Maybe we need to have a workshop on how we want to have our schools start times in the future from here going forward. I don't know how to unring the bell that's been rung right now in the most efficient and effective way so that it's the most least disruptive. We're already disrupted, and maybe the majority would rather have the disruption go back to where it was and status quo. So I'm sure the emails, phone calls, and conversations will continue with the superintendent on this. I've been directing mostly everybody to Carlin, who stays up late and gets up early and answers as many, if not all, of these emails. And I try to get everybody to send them to her so there's like a central a body of all of these so we can look at all the different perspectives. She has some probably that parents are okay with this. I know I've gotten some emails that parents are okay with it, but I try to ask people to send her the letters so that she has a collection of all of these requests.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, anyone that does have concerns, please send them to me. We have individualized and helped and supported those that did need adjustments. And I was just having a brief conversation as I left the table with a couple of people, and we'll make sure that it's publicized if you need help, you need assistance, or anything like that while we're going through this, that you send us what your requests are and what your needs are. Thank you.
Okay.
Next item.
I believe we're on to the next item. Thank you again. We're on to the consent agenda at this point in time, approval of the minutes 6.1.
I move the consent agenda.
The consent agenda in its totality, or the approval of the minutes?
We're doing them.
6.3. Do them individually.
You're doing them individually.
6.1, yeah, I had some
I move
questions.
the approval of 6.1.
Second.
Any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor on accepting them as written?
Aye.
Any opposed? So noted. Personnel actions, there are a long list of them. I just had a couple of quick questions before we went ahead and approved it. There are apparently some areas where Ms. Jermaine on number 8, an addition of a math teacher. Number 11, an addition of a social studies teacher is at Rogers High School. And the recommendation is that we do it. And one of your notes is added due to enrollment and student need. There's enough of an increase at the high school enrollment that we need to actually add teacher spots.
Yes. Yes.
And for the record, these are not budgeted, I wouldn't imagine, because they were unforeseen due to...
That is correct, and as I put in I called them the cliff notes to try to make the information more succinct for you, by the ability to replace some of our retired teachers and teachers that have left the district with teachers at a lower step, it has helped us to avoid any budget concerns for the moment. We will continue to monitor closely as we move forward, and please, if you have any questions, let us know.
I guess one of my other questions was, with the P-TECH, it says a new learning position for P-TECH, and funding would come from career and tech tuitions. I did have a question about this in the pre-meeting, and it was okay for me to talk generally about this position as far as the need for this position. So
the P-TECH, it's called, for the audience, it's called Workplace Learning. And as part of the P-TECH program, the students come in and they have their math, English, they have them on what we call the Summit Learning Platform. So it enables them, it's an adaptive software as well as the blended learning. So it enables them to increase their learning at their own pace. We have 6 students that would have been high school sophomores that are actually taking courses at CCRI and earning credits. And that will continue. The workplace learning is part of learning etiquette, rules, how one behaves in the workplace, and that's part of the program. It's always been part of the program. And the tuitions from the NACTAC program will help to support this program, this position, excuse me. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I don't have any further questions on this particular...
Mr. Mayor, I move adoption of 6.2.
Second.
Any other questions? Mr. Carlin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Superintendent Jermaine, there are 31 positions you've put before us as appointments this evening. Of the 31 positions that you put before us, how many of these are as a result of a leave of absence, a retirement, or some other situation where there is an employee who was in the position but who will not be in the position for this school year?
Okay, and that's why I created the Cliff Notes. So number 1 is a replacement for a teacher on leave.
Okay.
Number 2 is a replacement for a teacher on maternity leave. Number 3 is a replacement for a teacher that retired. Number 4 is a replacement for a teacher that has gone on to another position. Number 5 is budgeted. It was in the budget. The next one is replacement for a teacher that's on a leave. It's budgeted. The next one is a replacement for a teacher that retired, number 7. Number 8, this is, I'll keep going on that. Number 9 is a replacement for a teacher.
Number 8 is what, please?
Number 8 is not one that retired or left. Number
It's a brand-new position.
Yes, and that's what Mr. Hanos was discussing prior. Number 9 is a replacement for a teacher that retired. Number 10 is to replace a teacher that is left. Number 11 is not. Number 12, 13 through 24, those are paraeducators.
Are they brand-new positions?
5 of them are, yes.
5 are brand-new positions?
Yes, and they
you're
are
talking about
and they,
numbers 13 through 24?
Yes, and
Okay.
they are covered by tuitions from special ed that we transferred over into the salary line to cover that.
They're covered by tuitions from special ed?
Yes, we had an
transferred over?
Yes, we had an ODP that.
What's the total for the transfer? What's the total amount you transferred from tuitions to this funding for paraeducators?
I'm not sure, Mr. Carlin. I don't know off the top of my head. I know it's within the department, and it fell within the policy.
So I guess if we have budgeted the tuition money,
right,
and we put
That's
it in
the
a
budget.
proper place, why do we no longer need that money that we feel as though we can take that money and hire 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 new employees?
It's not 13 new employees, Mr. Carlin. There are 5 new positions there. The others are replacements for positions that we already had in our budget.
Okay, so the 5
Okay.
new positions, why do we think we don't need the money that we transferred in order to cover these 5 new positions?
Because we have a out-of-district placement that we did not need, and so we also had, based upon student need within our district, we needed paraeducators for those students. Number 27 is a replacement for a teacher.
Excuse me, how about 25 and 26?
Okay, do you want me to go through all of them? Because I'm sorry, I thought your question was how many were replacements or for people for retired?
No, I like what you were doing, going through each one of them, because
Okay.
I'd like to, I think you understand it. I want to find out where the funding's coming from, because when you say it's budgeted, I'll have a follow-up question on that, but I do like the way you were doing it, explaining.
Okay. All right. Number 25. That position is one that is due to enrollment and the number of children in the program. And you'll see the comment, the director at this time feels the special education budget may be able to absorb this salary. So that's where we're getting the funding for that.
Okay, and part of the reason I'm asking this publicly is because we are privy to notes that the public's not privy to. I mean, I think the public needs a thorough understanding
I
of
agree.
why we're appointing 31 people.
Okay, well, I think the other thing we should note too, we did not do any hires prior to this. Sometimes we have a special meeting before school starts, and we did not have one this time. Patrick, the next one, 26, is on a per diem, and it's on a 30, 60, 90 trial basis. It's an interim, and
How much is the per diem cost per day, please?
it's $500 per day.
So $2,500 a week for how long do you expect?
We have a 30, 60, 90 calendar that we're going on, and we have it budgeted, and
What is that position for, so the public understands?
that's the interim director of technology.
Do we
which
not
is-
have 3 people on?
No, he's not here tonight.
Do we not have 3 people on staff who are in the technology services of the Newport School Department?
We have 2 technology people, 2 technology technicians that work the buildings, and they support the teachers in the classroom.
So those 2 individuals cannot do the job that we're paying someone $2,500 a week to do?
That is correct.
So what do those 2 individuals do that this new individual, the new hire?
They do a lot of work, and they do break and fix. They do helping with the teachers in the classroom and supporting the technology and the equipment. There's a myriad of technology needs they fill for the school. But this person is for overseeing network, overseeing the structure. This is something that's in our strategic plan, and it was one of the things under the technology section that was greatly needed, so we budgeted for that. The next one is a replacement, number 27, and it's budgeted. The next one is a replacement, and it's budgeted, number 28. Number 29 is a replacement, and it's budgeted. Number 30 is a replacement and budgeted. And number 31 is, let's see, this one right here was for a position, and this was, I believe, one of the ads, and it has to do with our strategic plan as far as providing an additional support program and structure within the middle school.
So I understand why 27 is a replacement, and I understand why 28 is a replacement.
Right.
29, 30, and 31, when you say it's a replacement, are the individuals who were formerly in that position retiring? Are they on pregnancy leave? Are they?
No, 29 and 30, they have left the district, and 31 is not a replacement. That's part of the strategic plan, and that's an ad.
Okay, so my follow-up question to this is, when you had mentioned that positions were budgeted for, there are several that you use that terminology with, and I appreciate your detail here so that I can better understand which positions are new and which positions are replacements or temporary.
So this process, we're trying this out because we felt this was more streamlined and kept all the information in one location. So
But
thank you for that.
With regard to the budget, or with regard to what you say, these positions are budgeted, when we presented our budget to the Newport City Council, and when we finally adopted it, we included must-do budget. We included line items that we classified as must-do.
Correct.
That is to say, pay raises, contractual obligations. We had that number at $903,717. The budget that we, and by the way, the budget for 16-17 in the last school year was $20,405,692. The budget that the school committee adopted was $21,524,662. If you subtract the must-do contractual obligations of $903,000, we come up with a total of between last year and this year's budget, $20,620,945. That's only $217,000 additional dollars that we have added into the budget beyond contractual obligations. I see far more than $217,000 in spending this evening with these replacements. Where are we getting the money? We haven't budgeted for it.
Mr. Carlin, if I believe everything's explained how, and you just had me go through where we were getting the funding for it, and of the
No,
total...
you explained where 5 paraeducators specifically were getting the funding for. I'm asking about the non-para personnel.
Right.
Where are we getting the money if we have only budgeted $217,000 additional dollars from beyond what we needed contractually? Can you tell me that we're only spending $217,000 more dollars? Are we fitting within the budget that we adopted?
Yes, absolutely.
Tell me how we're doing that.
Excuse me, for clarification, our policy allows us to have a 3-hour meeting. These are staff that were hired, they're already working, I believe.
Well,
in
they're
the
not
system.
hired yet.
Well, they're not officially hired. And I understand the line, I'm not asking to do anything other than not come back for a special meeting within the next 48 hours to go ahead and approve this. I appreciate the questions, Mr. Carlin. I understand them 100%. I had the same questions myself on certain things, but I mean, we, by policy, are going to have to shut this down. We're not going to get through this particular item.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to remove number 8 and number 11 for separate votes, please, prior to the approval of the personnel actions.
Is there a second on that?
The motion does not need a second, it's a non-debatable motion.
Is that true, Mr. Galvin?
The motion is to remove an item from the consent agenda
No,
from the list.
from the list.
Yeah, from the consent agenda.
on that particular item.
Correct.
I would think that that needs a second.
I would think so as well. Is there a second on that? None seen, that fails. All in favor of the motion in front of you to accept
Mr. Chairman?
6.2.
consent agenda 6.2,
Mr. Chairman?
signify by saying aye.
Mr. Chairman, I have a
Any
question.
opposed?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Are you opposed or for it?
I
need to know officially.
I haven't stopped my questioning. I have additional questions, and I specifically would like to discuss 8 and 11 and the reason why I asked those to be pulled.
And it was not seconded, so I'm not sure if you're for or against a motion to accept the consent agenda 6.2.
Well, I'll continue the discussion then, Mr. Chairman, since...
The meeting is coming to a close when I drop my gavel. For the record, I assume Mr. Carlin abstained from the vote. It
Mr.
went
Carlin
6.
did not abstain from the
I
vote.
need an
I have
official-
additional questions about spending of money and about number 8 and number 11, which I support. But I mean, this is, Mr. Chairman, I got to tell you, this is very undemocratic, not unlike the rest of what we heard tonight.
Mr. Chairman,
Mrs. Gaines.
I move that we continue the reports of the superintendent since we have reached our time of expiration.
I believe we still need to have an official count on a vote tonight before we close session. There were 6 that voted
I'll second
in
Mrs.
favor.
Gaines's motion.
I need to recognize it first, Mr. Carlin. I'm asking legal counsel if we have officially voted effectively to proceed with the consent items, being that Mr. Carlin will not indicate whether he's for or against it.
It appears to me that you called for the vote and you took the vote, and I think you have a vote in front of you on item 6.2. I don't think you took a vote on item 6.3.
No.
That's the only one.
I'm saying 6.2 officially. How do we officially?
I believe there was a vote taken.
6 positive votes.
6 in favor.
When did we vote on 6.2?
He kept interrupting.
Okay. So I will entertain the motion for Mrs. Gaines to move that forward.
6.3.
Second.
Second.
You want to go back to 6.2?
No,
No,
we
no.
voted on 6.2.
So then it's
I'm
6.3.
moving that we accept 6.3.
And I second it. I second
It's
it.
been
On
seconded.
homeschool children.
I need to ask for clarity from our legal counsel. We have a policy time limit of 3 hours. We are beyond that 3-hour time frame. So in order to entertain any more motions to continue going forward, I need to know legally what can we do at this point in time.
Yeah, I don't have that policy in front of me. I would suggest, my instinct tells me that you would have to vote to extend the meeting to accommodate that last vote.
I move to extend the meeting no more than 10 minutes.
How about frame it nice and tight?
5 minutes?
How about to answer 6.3? How about, that's just a friendly suggestion from me.
Okay, 6.3.
Don't want to
Finish
leave it too open.
I move that we finish 6.3 and then adjourn the meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
So 2/3 will do it, correct?
Yes.
So we're there. Mrs. Gaines?
I was going to move
But
that.
I had to just, Mrs. Phelps came tonight, sat through this whole meeting, and she just got approved. And we usually make just, thank you for coming tonight and welcome to Newport Public Schools. Did anybody else show up that I didn't recognize? All right.
Yes,
Go
that
ahead,
math
sorry.
teacher.
Okay, go ahead, 6.3.
No, we've done 6.3. I'm just.
No, we
going-
have not.
I've done it.
Oh, okay, do I start on?
Yeah.
That's what we're doing right now.
Doing it right now.
I moved.
Is there a motion to accept 6.3 on
So
this
moved.
dais, please? Somebody.
So moved.
And seconded. All those in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. We've run out of time.
Just receive these.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
So these will just roll over to the next